those next leadership positions. And one of the things that my intent with the city is that we have good succession planning, and I appreciate it with Chief Huff. We've had those discussions. And when we look at potential retirements down the road, and it may be 4 years, it may be 5, it may be 6, whatever it is, you've got to have new people that you're grooming that are willing to step in. So not saying when, but just knowing that potential, I'm looking at all of you sitting out there, right? So, okay, with that, Councilman Haverfield.
Just from bookkeeping standpoint, I heard you mention the 72,000 saved from the VRT. I'm not sure that the motion was to reduce the amount, but it wasn't to designate those funds to go elsewhere. So is that going to be an issue?
No, and I'm glad you brought that up. I wanted to clarify that concept, because what we approved, at least in my mind, and if I'm wrong, please correct me here, we approved the reduction of the expenses for VRT. We did not approve a reduction in revenues related to that. So we, in essence, deducting that $72,000 from the expense bucket increased my $194,000 by that same amount. So we still have the revenues budgeted for approval. And you could have come back and say, we want to reduce that as well. That's within your purview. But at that time, we just took out the expenses, and so increased the amount of money. Then we used part of it for the benefits, or the HR training, and a couple of other small areas. Does that clarify?
Well, it was Councilman Bruner's motion, but I thought that's, just wanted to make sure that the clarity of that was, I think it was yours.
Yeah, does that not count?
Probably not. I just wanted to make sure that the clarity of that is that it still could be reused in a different pocket. It's just not eliminated altogether.
Councilor Brunner.
Mayor, I think from what the mayor said, we could even go down a little further. She received that
Well, we can always go down.
Yeah, she's.
And that's
Just
perfectly
frees
fine.
up funds.
It frees up funds is what
that
it
are not
does.
already dedicated, so then they become available.
And I'm really glad, Councilman Haverfield, you brought that up, because in the prior years, we've made the assumption that when you adjust the revenue or expenses, you're also adjusting the revenues. But this is a unique year where we have more revenues than expenses, so it's a very good clarification to
And that's
make.
the point I was going to make too. In years past, that's what we've done, is where we've taken things and edited it out, was with the desire to lower what we were actually trying to increase the budget by.
Exactly.
Mayor Klein? So when I looked at this whole picture yesterday, I realized that when I was 12 years ago, when I was in the Napa Police Department, I was a patrolman master 3, which is I was a detective, and there was one reason why I did not want to promote to a corporal, sergeant, and especially a lieutenant, because I knew down the road that I would not get a good retirement because I make more than lieutenants. Here we are 12 years later, and it's the same situation. And these gentlemen and ladies work 70 hours a week sometimes, and we can't continue to do this. It doesn't pan out with our staff. So we've got to do something, Mayor and Council. This is a dire situation with these gentlemen and ladies.
Well, Councilman Rodriguez, there are two factors at play here. One, we continue to support the police and the union negotiations, through negotiations. So that drives up the wages of the patrol and the corporals and sergeants, whereas the command staff is tied to the general gov. And this causes the degree of consternation among Gen Gov is we don't get those raises frequently. So our wages tend to lag behind what they get, and that creates part of the disparity. The second part of this is this particular action here puts us within striking distance of Meridian. So not above Meridian, but in the ballpark with them. So we're moving the right direction. But 5 years down the road, you may have to do this again, because the command staff are still tied to the Gen Gov.
That's true.
It is difficult when the patrol, or those that are not on command, are hourly and getting paid overtime. I will say, I have to be careful saying that, but they get paid well. Our team gets paid well. And so it isn't that they don't get paid well, but it is difficult when you're working overtime, time and a half, it pulls you way up. And in order to step forward into command, they're salaried and they may work 70 or 80 hours a week, so that hourly rate goes down because they're not getting paid overtime. And so I can understand why people do not want to move into that, and because of that situation. And so I am concerned, I'm pleased that it's, what we had set aside works within the general fund and the proper balance of property taxes and state shared revenue. I'm going to be a real stickler on how much we use of state shared revenue, because if that tanks, we're going to do layoffs. And I don't want to go there. So we need to make sure that we have a sustainable budget, that we can just stay right where we are, and that we're not funding out of a bank that's going to change. And so I think our budget team has done a really good job to ensure that, and to make sure that that balance is there between our property tax and state shared revenue. So with that, because it's within the scope, I think from a financial standpoint, and I look to our budget team for this and trust their guidance. And so Ed, I think you've given a lot of look at that, right? Yeah, okay.
Just to be clear, Doug, you said this will address the chief position, captains, lieutenants, and sergeants?
Right, now, for just final clarity, Meridian does not have captains. We do. So, no, that's okay. No, sergeants are part of the association negotiations, but this will address the transition from sergeant to lieutenant, and then on up.
Hey, Mayor, do we need a motion for this?
Do, and I'm not sure how to frame that motion. Are we framing it? Can you remind us of the dollar amount that we would? You've got it.
177,000 plus benefits of 20.
The benefits are within that 177. It doesn't go above that. So I think it was 144, and then we added,
Sorry, working on two different numbers at the same time.
I think it was 134.
and then I just want to make it clear that we're approving a number. That is not a final decision. And Brad, what you submitted, we'll take further discussion, but we'll get the round number done.
Right. So I would believe the proposal would be to approve the adjustment of payroll command staff.
You
up
disregard the net.
And related post-retirement benefits up to $177,000.
So moved.
I will make
Second.
a motion.
I think Victor had already started, so we'll let him, and then we'll come down to Councilman Bauer for the second. Thank you. Sorry,
We
Randy.
did the police budget yesterday.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that we approve an increase in budget for command staff to, and the increase in budget is $177,000. Is there any discussion? Is there any clarity from finance?
Mayor, can we require the command staff that they can't retire for at least another 10 years?
Yeah.
Sure.
Conditional employment.
Health industry
fine,
can
yeah.
require, can we require, okay.
Can I just give you the new total for that department? Is that okay? So it's on record also.
The total for the entire department?
Yes,
Okay.
if that's all right. It's 28,512,340.
One more time?
28,512,340.
What is our total property tax revenue?
Total property tax revenue for the entire city?
Yeah, the property tax that we collect.
Well, after the adjustment for the fire district annexation, it was 38.5 somewhere in million after
Okay.
that reduction.
Okay, thank you.
Of which the general fund, to be clear, gets 28,
28, 29?
right?
The general fund gets 28
Right,
million
so
out
now
of,
we have exhausted property tax in funding the police.
that means the remainder of the city is funded out of, would be funded out of, although
Shared
if,
revenues, transfers, and fees.
So is
whenever
this,
it shifts, it isn't.
so Mayor, is this over the top of the general fund for the police now?
Yes,
Is this
we've
put- is this
exceeded
put us
what,
over?
But it's been that
property
way
tax.
for years.
Okay, so we're just subsidizing it with other funds.
Right, but as I indicated with the police association, that, the property taxes are relatively stable. But if we get to a point where sales taxes fall off, then it could impact them
Because
down the road.
the comment I just made, that property tax revenue that's allocated to general fund is, that the police budget alone is now exceeding that. If there were something to change, I just want the rest of the employees across the city to say, if ever we had to cut back, it would be, police would be involved in the same cutback. It would go across the board. It isn't like police gets to be funded and the rest of us don't.
Exactly.
I just want everybody to know that, because that would be very concerning to the rest, the remaining employees in the city.
We hope and pray and wish that never happens.
That never happens.
But there are budgetary realities, and you go to where the biggest dollars are.
Yeah, I just think it's important to understand in the scope of a budget.
So,
Mayor, just philosophically, if down the line, the state legislature does grant the citizens of the state of Idaho property tax relief, how's that going, how are we going to?
It's almost impossible to speculate because we don't know what form that would take. If the state decided to fund it from their largesse of the online sales taxes, then it would have no impact to us. If, however, they literally reduce our taxing base, then we've got a real challenge.
I'm saying if they don't increase our ability for new construction.
Same challenge, just it creeps in a little slower.
So we're playing a little bit of
Yep.
a gamble here.
The entire state is.
All right, is there any further discussion? Okay, roll call.
Brunner,
Yes.
Munchy,
Yes.
Levi,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
and Bauer.
Yes.
Okay. So going back to Mayor's Team Council, can we knock that one out and get it out of the way?
Yes, I think I just asked Michelle to pull up the actual expenses incurred on the mayor's team council this year. But what we decided last night was to create an intra-fund transfer of $2,000 out of general gov into the mayor's team council in this budget cycle. If I recall correctly, the budget, total revenue expense budgets were $3,600. This would increase it to $5,600. At the end of the year, we will take whatever's left in the prior year's fund balance, which was $3,900, but we've had expenses hitting against that in this current year. Michelle was looking up to tell me what that is. So at the end of the year, we will take whatever is left over in that fund balance and roll it into the total. So you could have as much as $5,600 plus the residue of what we haven't spent available for use if needed.
And the 3,600 is actually, I mean, I don't know how
Yeah.
to say this, that's just a number that was, the $3,000 was a grant that we received several years ago that's already in this amount.
Yeah.
So it really shouldn't be doubling up.
Yeah.
Because we don't have 3,000 plus what's there, plus 1,600. That, I mean, that's not a reality. So, I mean, basically, those are sponsorship dollars,
Yes.
but I don't necessarily anticipate, I think we've doubled up on some stuff. We have some cleanup to do, and it has to do with Tyler, it has to do with the project strings and how they were being used. We talked about it last night, and I think that we've made some mistakes in the system with employee transition and using project strings. And so we're gonna need to do some cleanup, but we could leave the budget right where it is. The $2,000 out of general fund has always been there.
Yeah.
The only thing we were doing was transferring it from the mayor's budget to the mayor's team council, so it was very clean, that you knew what it was for.
Right.
And so the mayor's team council budget, what is anticipated to have the $2,000 for supplies and for that team council. And then whatever sponsorship dollars roll into it and any additional fundraising they might do. I don't anticipate the fundraising at the level.
Okay.
We
So
can try
I
it, but I will see.
I believe the 3,900, give or take, was the leftover of the fundraising from prior years. That was the fund balance at the beginning this year. I believe that's what it was.
It's very likely. So,
Okay.
but let's leave it the way it is.
Okay.
We'll leave the three, is it 2,000 plus 1,600?
3,600.
Plus the 2,000 in the
Plus the
operational
2,000,
budget?
right.
Okay, and I'm sorry, guys, it's embarrassing that
Well-
we didn't have this cleaned up on our side. So I
So
apologize.
we would be there for requesting the budgetary approval for 5,600 for the mayor's teen council. Are you good with that?
I'm good with that. I just want to make it very clear that only 2,000 of
Only
that.
2,000.
Only 2,000 of that is what we're doing budget
Yes.
authority for. The rest is fundraising that we have to do.
Yes.
And I don't remember what page the Mayor's Teen Council was in. Actually, it's.
297.
297. So I think it'd be good to just go to that actual budget. And it actually has, 2,000 in it.
So
But
I'm
we
thinking.
need it as a revenue,
Yeah.
not
right.
as an expense.
Exactly.
Right.
That's the revenue
Well, it's a
offset.
revenue and an expense.
It's the revenue to cover the expense. Yeah, it's both.
Right. That's where what we're missing.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Gina. Oh, I'm so sorry. This is embarrassing.
So
Okay, so it's,
I think I know what we're doing.
so it's been moved and seconded that we add $2,000 as a revenue stream from general fund to the Mayor's Teen Council budget. So with that, is there any further discussion? And I'm going to be quiet.
Ed, let me ask a question to Ed, because I think Ed's, if we add the 2,000, Ed, are we going back and distorting the general gov budget that's already approved?
Yes, we'll have to make some changes, but.
Can we
what
do
I-
it within the current cap of what's there right now, or do we need
Well,
to
we just-
adjust it?
We just did 177,000 in that same budget.
Yes,
So we
yes.
can't do another two?
Yes,
Yes,
we
we
can do
can.
another two.
It's just the mechanics of how we do it.
I mean, it's the same process we just approved.
We want to take the, do we want to just transfer it out of Gen Gov?
I would prefer. Yeah.
I could reduce.
Yeah, we have a funding mechanism. Without increasing Gen Gov, we'll just take it a little bit out of one of the reserves, or if we reduce VRT further, but we have a mechanism to accomplish that without any stress or undue worry. And it will not increase the total budget, we'll just shift it from one pocket to the other out of one of the reserves.
It makes me want to ask another question.
Okay.
Because the previous vote we just did, where we said we had funds, are we,
We have essentially used up the $194,000. That one is now, we are now roughly at par. We'll need a little bit of smoothing on the budgetary system to make that tie out, but we've used that up. We have not increased the total revenue budget, we have increased the expense budget.
okay, so that maxed us out in the room that we have to work with. So that means there's no other adjustments today.
Right.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. All righty, I think we're ready unless there's questions, discussions, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi? Bauer?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
And Mucci?
Yes.
All righty, so the tough stuff, good grief. I think we ended yesterday. In fact, I know we ended after 4-5, although we were in 4-5 all other grants. And possibly
I think we
Main
voted
Street.
on it. I think we voted on it to approve it, to send it to public hearing. We just wanted clarity.
Right.
Through the magic of email, shared with me that out of the $3,900 left over in the team council, we have spent $1,923 so far this year. So we have a remainder of $2,018. So that's just clarity of what's going on there. Michelle, were you able to look up and find the budgets we had for the transfers last year for FIC and NCC?
Yes.
What are they?
The total, well, it's broken out between operational and capital. So
What was the operational portion?
$718,621 for the Idaho Center, which is the same in the 22 budget.
Right, we didn't change that for 2 years with FIC, 718,000.
And 280 for capital, and this, for 22, it's 660.
Okay, go back. I don't think we're interested in capital, just operations
just
right now.
operations.
Just
Okay.
operations.
Civic Center, 381, 482 for both years.
So we had Ed, this year, we have how much budgeted in operations transfer for FIC? It was 718, 718, correct, Michelle?
Yes.
And we'll get all these little housekeeping items out of the way, and then we can move on.
When you find your page, next year we will have tabs. I'm lost without tabs, so I apologize that we didn't have tabs this year because it does make it difficult.
Nothing like being put on the spot here. What's that?
What was the last year?
Last year was 718,000 for NCC, and FIC, and 381, was it, Michelle, 381,000 for,
482.
482 for NCC.
They're the same in both years.
Same in both years. Are they the same this year? Okay, so we have not changed the operational funding for last year and this year, actually 2 years, with the FIC and the NCC, and that is $718,000 last year and this year of operational funding. And for the NCC, it's 480, Michelle, 400,
380.
It's
381.
381, $381,000. And those remain the same values. So we have not increased. In a normal course, we would have hoped to decrease it, but we're not in a normal environment yet.
We'll get there. And just for clarity, when we're talking capital, that does not come from, that comes from our capital budget line item, which is funded through franchise fees. It's a separate
Entirely
funding.
from capital and not from any government taxes.
Correct. So that's where that is. So, does that answer your questions, Randy? Thank you.
And I would like to make one point of clarification going forward. We have, in the past, we weren't as steadfast in dedicating franchise fees entirely to capital. We would tend to use them as we needed. But we've decided for stability and for funding purposes, all franchise fees, electrical, gas, cable, are dedicated towards capital, and they are coded such in the capital department. So it's a change that probably is overdue, but it solidifies our capacity to meet capital needs without leveraging any of the property tax funding.
So I have a question. Did we resolve Main Street?
Yes.
We were in all other grants, and I just need that reminder. Main Street got, and I do have a check mark by it. So we finished that yesterday.
It was voted in.
Okay. So if I'm correct, we are starting with the Development Impact Fee Fund. Is that correct? Okay. Can you remind me what page that's on? All of us?
303.
303.
303.
Okay. Thank you for being ahead of me on my book. This is good.
Okay, if you can actually flip over to page 304. Most of what we'll talk about in the impact fees will be in the capital portion of the budget. What you see here is what we expect to bring in for resources. So in the proposed budget, I've estimated that perhaps we'd bring in 25,000 development impact fees that will be credited to Development Services Building Safety Account, and that 25,000 will be used for upgrading the CIP as we go. Parks expects to bring in 2,500. The police department is proposing 13,000. and development impact fees and will expend 13,000.
Yeah, he's,
2.5 million?
yes, I was gonna,
Yes.
yes.
Impact fees.
So you said 2,500, but
Oh,
it's
excuse me.
2.5 million.
2.5 million.
Then can
And
we
then-
just stop on police? Why is police only 13,000?
Well, a couple of things going on with police, and I would ask you to turn back to page 66 in your book. And look at the bottom of the page. This is where the discussion really starts. If you look at the graph, what you see is the average residential, I guess, townhouse mobile home. The permit fee in total is $5,459. We see the distribution here of 2,841 or 52% going to streets, 31% or about 1,700 going to parks, police 7%, $359, and fire 560 or 10%. We're at a point with police that we really can't afford to spend out of impact fees at this point because we are facing the probability of having to expand to what I'll call a substation somewhere in the city of Nampa. And we are far behind being able to generate impact fees, hold on to impact fees at this time. Do you have the balance of the fee fund that you could bring up? Okay, so I can't see it, but let me step up here.
So I have a question. So this is reflecting our expenses rather than the revenues that
Well,
will,
we're not going to forecast revenues more than what
Because
we're
we-
going to expend.
right?
So, right now, in police, looking across, I think we'll end up maybe at 1.4. Parks is at 6.1. Fire as at 3.1.
Can we enlarge that, please? Is it possible to enlarge it because we can't see it?
One more. One more. There you go. Can you see Darrell?
I don't like to see myself.
And then if you can, yeah, there you go, roll it up, because we don't need to see the city of Nampa at the top, we just need to see the numbers, perfect.
Okay, so these are our estimated balances. Obviously, there will be payables and expenditures between now and the end of the year. So going down the list again, streets has about $9 million. The CIP and admin in the supplemental budget will go down to about 25,000 from the 163. We are making funding available to Department of Parks and Recreation to allow them to update their capital plan. Is Bradley here?
CIP is the capital improvement plan, the administrative allocation to fund the review and the update of the plan, the capital improvement plan, which we will be doing this, we'll start in August.
So Brad and I have talked, I think we started our conversation back last August, actually, or September, talking about the stresses on the police department's impact fee fund and how sustainable it is going into the future, given all the demands being placed on the police department. Probably we could have funded a portion of those vehicles out of impact fees this year. However, the balance is very thin, especially when we're looking at, hopefully in 2029, being able to add another facility to protect the south side of town, north side of town. So I'll let Brad pick up from here and fill in on the color.
And thanks to whoever lowered the microphone from yesterday. So our last run at the CIP provided for a second precinct towards the north end. We don't have property purchased or an exact location, but I guess if you could picture north of the Idaho Center somewhere where we're seeing a tremendous amount of growth. That rate that we currently collect was established in 2018, at 2018 construction costs for a 40,000 square foot facility on the north end. We're not going to get close to that if we continue to nickel and dime it, which is not really nickels and dimes, it's $500,000 a year in cars, and we're not collecting fees at a high enough rate to allow us to build up enough fund to cover the CIP portion of the building. So when Ed and I talked about it, it was like, let's take a look and see if we can't fund cars out of capital, which is where they belong, and leave the fund to grow towards this next precinct. We don't even have the funding mechanism for the city's share of the next precinct. So we're still trying to juggle those balls and figure out how we're going to get to the dollar amount that we need to. And especially with the unpredictability of what a construction cost is going to be in 2029, 2030 versus where we're at today, which is ridiculous. But certainly when you compare it to when we set these fees back in 2018, that math does not work on a facility at the rate that we're collecting fees. So that was the basis of why we tried to push off doing vehicle purchases. That small little 13,000 was for a small remodel on our second floor, which we may or may not have to proceed with. With all the other stuff going on in our building, we might be able to accommodate the change we needed without having to expend even that 13,000. So we're trying to be good stewards with that impact fee as best we can.
Thank you, Brad. I do want to say so the impact fees are governed, and I think you guys know this, by state statute. And actually, we should be tracking the allocation of fees that we have set aside for cars and set aside for buildings. And we have funded a lot of cars, and we have really drawn down that. And so we can't rob from one to pay the other, hence the cars are in the regular budget. When we go through the impact fee meetings that Patrick will be leading, I believe it's in August that we have our first one, we need to look at how much we're collecting and to ensure that we're collecting at the rate that we need to be collecting for the work that needs to be done. So we'll readdress that. So thank you. I just wanted you to share that. And yeah, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. But the key with impact fees is that growth funds growth. So actually, those new cars should be coming out of impact fees. We just had not collected enough in impact fees to match the growth side of what we're doing. One other comment on impact fees. Impact fees are a wonderful way, and they're great. I'm glad that we've moved forward and we've implemented, and we're taking 100% of what the CIP says, which is very, very important, and we need to continue to do that. But one thing we have to be mindful of 5 and 10 years down the road is that when we bring things on, we have to be mindful of the replacement, the renewal and the replacement. So we may have funding to bring all the vehicles on, but if we don't have funding out of our general fund budget to replace those cars, then that becomes a problem. And so one of the things that Doug and I have been talking about and that we're absolutely focused on is what does the long-term plan look like from here? Because that is critical. Go ahead, Doug.
One of the things that Ed has mentioned at least once or twice today that will help solidify that aspect is the creation of fleet as the owner of vehicles, and therefore they can manage them. They retain the proceeds from any sale of used vehicles. It will help us mitigate some of the future impact, because you're exactly right. That comes back to a comment I made at the very beginning. When you open something brand new, you invest in it, it runs great for 10, 15 years, then you have to do a capital refresh, and that money has to come from somewhere. So that's part of the long-term planning. And the council today is taking some significant steps in helping us prepare for the future by allowing us to takes chunks out of our deferred maintenance by addressing some of the rough edges we're dealing with. And they are sound financial decisions for the future, because we don't know exactly what's going to happen with legislative actions or sales tax revenues. So most of the changes we propose will be to put us, and even that would include, sorry for going off, but including the establishment of reserves or contingencies that are not automatically spent. That allows us to prepare for the future.
And I'm just going to make another comment, and I apologize for this, but this is the stuff that keeps me up at night. And so while this year we have a good year with increased state shared revenue, when we look down the road, and Doug mentioned it earlier, that potential cliff that's there, our job, and this is what, as council and mayor, is to look long-term. So not investing where we need to invest actually costs the city more long-term. But we also need to be very mindful of what that long-term thing is. So one of the things we're going to do, as soon as we get through budget, the very next thing we're going to do is actually focus on our ARPA funding.
Yep.
But then the next thing after that is that we're going to work on strategic planning internally with our budget, long-term forecast, to ensure that 5 years down the road, we are where we need to be, that we're financially able to sustain, even though we can't predict what the legislature is going to do, and that we have a really solid plan in place that ties our wage equity, our employees, the work that needs to be done in the city, that it's all tied together. And so as we do that, and we'll do that with council too, to where we all work together on it.
I think the role of finance in this is to provide the council with the correct information to determine the balance. What should the current level of spending be? What should the preparation for the future be? And that's the role of finance, to provide that information.
Thank you.
Could you also look into, as the urban renewal districts sunset, what that will do as far
Yes.
as to help solve this issue?
I've had several conversations with Steve Onifray about that, and I will continue that and develop some clarity on that. But as of now, I don't believe we have a date set for their sunsetting. I know when the loans will pay off.
Right. And that's, and then the decision by council or by the city at that point, whether to create a new one or whatever.
Yep.
Obviously, but at this point in time, I don't see that happening. But as these sunset, the value of that incremental increase that has happened in the district will come into the city, and that might help you sleep at night.
Well, it comes in, but keep in mind, in the same way they are dealing with the new construction, they are also limiting the value of the total urban renewal coming into the city. I think it's 80%?
It's 80%, and they wanted it at 50.
Yeah,
Which is,
so-
so there's some urban renewal districts that are pausing right now. They're not sunsetting
Because of that.
because of looking at how they can utilize some of those funds, which is unfortunate, but who knows what'll happen by then.
Yeah.
But based on the information we know today, yes, Counselor, we will prepare that.
Thank you. So going back to our impact fee fund, thank you. That was a long thing on that, but hopefully you guys found it valuable. So this is what we are anticipating expending out of each one of the funds this year.
Correct. So this is the revenue source. Impact fee revenue itself will be a little over 8.2 million, and use from fund balance, 2.8 million for parks. The actual discussion of what the funds will be applied to will be taken up in the capital portion of the budget. So I think we can move on.
Well, do we need to approve this? Do we need to approve the general, because we will be approving them individually, right?
We will be approving the projects individually, but you could make a motion to approve at least the revenue portion. And as we look at the individuals.
I'm sorry, is that value the 11 million that's in our book?
Yes, 11,039,975 is what I would ask you to approve.
I'll make that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Turner? Yes. Mucci?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Levi, and
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Okay, are we ready for the capital improvement fund?
Yes, page 307. Okay. So this year, the capital improvement fund is on page 307. The fund is financed by franchise fees. We are estimating that our fees this year will amount to 1.79 million. We're hoping that we will earn 55,000 in estimated revenue from interest income. This will provide us with a base of about 1.8 million to pay for needed capital improvements for general government departments and at times other funds. This year, we're proposing 1.1 million in capital expenditures for general government, primarily in facilities, and to invest nearly 600,000 in the Civic Center and Fort Idaho Center. Additionally, due to rising costs in the construction industry, we're earmarking 144,000 as a contingency for change orders and increasing costs. We are proposing to drop 2 million to the fund balance to provide the mayor and city council with options related to the purchase of the Fleet Building and Street Service Center. If you choose to lease purchase, I guess my preference would be using a certificate of participation. This gives Nampa's citizens an opportunity to invest in the future of Nampa. Typically, a COP will sell in $5,000 increments, and although they have a very modest coupon rate, they are usually tax exempt on the federal level and on the state level where they're issued. So as you develop your strategy and how much you figure you will pay down on the building, a couple of things that you should be aware of. 3 factors will influence the success of the sale of the COP. One is credit worthiness, the amount, and the yield to maturity, which will be the great equalizer in the sale. So basically, we have to make the amount attractive enough to pull in investors, right? And timing is everything. We are asking people to invest and hold for at least 10 years. So the type of people that invest in a COP are interested in getting a return. It's a little bit different than a bond. It's not a full faith and credit issue. We are making it dependent upon solely the revenues of the street fund and the fleet fund. So the 10-year holding period is important, okay, because that gives the investor some comfort that they will be able to recoup their investment and hopefully on the secondary market sell it for more, should they choose. And obviously, our credit rating will play in here. So we don't want to go with too thin or too thick to the market because we don't want to end up at not having an attractive issue and having to sell at a discount, which would give us fewer proceeds than if we sell at par at a premium. So I say this as having a little bit of experience with COPs, that the amount is important. So don't get hung up on paying down right to the bare minimum. I would encourage you to work with Doug and to find that optimal amount as you develop the plan for the fleet building, and more or less, instead of locking down something hard and fast, to give Doug a range to work with.
So today, in the capital fund, if I understand correctly, we're just authorizing the funds to be transferred in, but we're not making a decision, though, at this level yet. Is that
No,
correct?
those are sitting there
Okay.
for you to
But-
consider all options.
Okay,
If,
but,
if I am correct though, Mayor, what we approved yesterday was at least the the preliminary presentation of the fleet purchase which did not include leveraging any of these funds. It becomes an option for the council. Should they proceed forward with the fleet building? If they choose to, we have these funds to use as an optional pay down, but we're kind of like step one out of step five. We're not at the formal approval, but we're at the preparatory level saying, yeah, we think it's a good concept, but let's dig deeper.
Well, due to the timing and the budget, my understanding is we're giving the budget authority. We have to budget it if we're going to do it.
Right, correct.
That doesn't require us to make a decision on whether we put half down, we fund the whole
Exactly.
thing in a lease. That actual decision on how we do the funding will come at a later time.
Exactly.
We just need to be prepared with these actions so that we can make those decisions.
Correct.
As we move forward in exactly how we're going to do the funding. Yes.
So the certificate of participation bonds, does that require 2/3 majority of the population?
No,
So that's just a direction like a lease purchase.
it's,
It's a decision that this
right,
council
I mean,
is
there are
making.
some lease purchases where it's a mortgage with a specific bank, and they hold a note. In this case, it's kind of a public offering where you are attracting in investors to hold the certificates. So it's,
If the economy goes in the dumper and the city's obligated to pay back on these bonds, I guess they're called bonds, certificate of participation bonds. What is the recourse of the individuals that have given the money to the city? Is it leaning the city or, I mean, the
they
building?
take possession of the asset and they have the use of the asset for the term of the bond. And
If we default.
if we default, and at the conclusion of the term of the bond, that asset would be turned back to the city.
Okay, so it's still an ongoing conversation, obviously. We're just looking at setting this aside so that the public can then weigh in on this decision with us.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay. So,
Mayor,
yes.
Question, so I know this is further discussion, nothing in concrete or stone or whatever. Anyway, I thought we were discussing 7.2 million for the building itself yesterday.
That's the
I thought you-
contract price, yes.
Okay, and I think you were discussing, though, possibility of 3+ million yesterday. So that's still in the,
Yeah.
we're still in discussion phase, even though we're just
I
talking
mean,
about
it,
2
it
million.
it could go anywhere from financing 5.1 million to 5.5 million to $3.5 million, depending on how much of that $2 million we choose to use.
That's
or
where
not to use.
Ed is suggesting a window rather than just a.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's one point of reality to understand. Using the capital to pay down the borrowing in many ways makes good sense to pay us back, but in one way, it increases the rate of borrowing because the cost to create either a COP or a lease purchase won't decrease that much just because we're paying down the $2 million. So these are the things we want to consider.
And putting Councilwoman Munchy on the spot, but I thought she had a good question. So any consideration on a purchase on the golf courses, or we even?
No. Not with the state. They're not interested in a long-term anything.
And I believe,
We have discussed it, but they're not interested.
but I believe on the golf courses that we have the internal capacity to not go external. We pay for it cash.
I think maybe I should let her speak for herself, but one of, one or the other, if there was an option going.
Well,
The
all
golf
those
courses,
options.
our cost would change, and it would make it probably.
Very good. That answers the question.
So good. So you have a lot of options here. And, there's another piece of the 2 million that we could apply. And that is if we loan the 2 million internally, we could recover that over 10 years. And again, it would be based on prime rate plus 0.5% is, I think, a fair rate internally. But if we could pay it back over a 10-year period and deposit the annual payments back into the capital improvements fund for 10 years, you would have a seed to be able to do at least $200,000 in capital repairs.
Interesting.
I like the concepts because it's functioning a little bit more like a business, making sure that we're getting a return on that investment. So,
When they're ability to not
Yep.
continue to defer maintenance on.
Exactly. These types of steps we present them to you to consider so we can plan for the future more effectively.
So today, right now, we're in a capital fund, and I see that we have $1,099,986 in capital expenditures that we would be authorizing in addition to the full, what we've been talking about. Is the council going to see the list of capital
Yes.
that we'll approve later?
Yes, so
So-
we're asking to spend 1,842,514. Because we have to add in the transfer out and the contingency reserve, which is to take care of change orders and whatnot.
So the motion that you would be looking for would be to approve this, to authorize the spending of $1,842,514, did I get that right?
Yes, thank you.
Dollars out of capital fund this year.
Yes.
And then-
So move.
Second that.
Eric, question.
Okay, so Victor second. Yes.
For clarity then, what we have here before us is a balanced budget with no increase to our last year's general budget, or general, tell me what that is. Is it
The general fund,
general fund?
right, the general fund.
So no increase in general fund. We're looking at 8% total with new construction.
It's slightly, it's about 7%. We couldn't get to the 8%, but you're correct in the general values.
So when we're looking at these numbers, they are in that balanced budget. We're not adding it, it's not an increase, so.
Well, let me be very, very clear. The amount of monies we receive for the new property taxes are new spending, but they're not an increase in the rate of the taxation, but they are additional dollars we didn't have to spend last year. And incrementally, that's about $1.7 million of new monies from new construction.
New construction is helping us to give us this option.
Right.
I just want to make sure that if someone is a citizen listening online, we're not talking about creating a revenue stream out of their
No.
pocket.
Oh, no. No. The budget we have presented does not increase the property tax burden on the citizens.
Just to be clear, though, I want to clarify, I think something you just said. I want to make sure that the $2 million did not come out of new construction. This $2 million is surplus state shared revenue, sales tax revenue. So it doesn't have anything to do with property taxes at all.
That's the point I was trying to make.
Yeah.
Right.
I just want to make sure that it's clear.
Yes, and so what this will do, it will increase our overall budget, but it will have absolutely no impact on property taxes.
Yeah.
That side, and I think that's probably one
very
of the
critical.
hardest things to get out to the public, right? And it's what you're saying, Randy, is that those are two different things. When the public sees our overall budget go up, this contributes to that, but it does not contribute and has nothing to do with property taxes and our Gen Gov budget that is funded through property taxes. They're two separate things. So, perfect. Okay, so we were in the discussion, we had a motion to approve in a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Munchy,
Yes.
Levi,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Bauer, Rodriguez,
Yes.
Berner.
Yes.
Okay, debt service.
Debt service, we're asking to approve 2,743,850.
Is this for the GO bond?
Yes.
And the GO bond gets paid off in 24?
August of '24.
August of 24. Awesome.
So just a point of clarity, just so we're completely above board, it's 2.7 because we have $48,000 worth of debt service charges related to the refinancing of the prior bonds. Those monies will come back to us when we actually fund these borrowings next year. You recall it's a forward lock. So that's budgeting the expense, but the money will come back to us when we actually do the funding.
So just one other point, just to make sure I understand and for us to, just to all understand. When the GO bond gets paid off, it gets paid off, but those dollars don't come back into the city.
Nope.
It goes away. So what it does is it reduces the levy.
It
Right,
reduces
because
the levy.
it's an expense that will reduce the levy, but it does not, our capacity to budget does not go to this 2.7, it just goes away.
The only option, depending upon what legislation does, if you wanted to use that, would be to leverage a portion of our foregone, if that is still available at the time we get there. Then that would depend upon need. We wouldn't levy it just to levy it, we would levy it if there was a need that we needed to fill, and that would give us capacity to levy without increasing the burden on the taxpayers. If not, levy rates would fall.
Thank you. So at this point, we need, go ahead.
Excuse me, Mayor. Ed, would you give me that number again, please?
Yes.
Something
think it's-
308.
Yeah, I have it. I just wondered, to clarify, 'cause I think you said that, no, maybe I didn't write it down right, but
$2,743,850.
yeah, I thought I heard him right, that's why.
So at this point, I'd stand for a motion to approve $2,743,850.
Well
And
moved, Mayor.
any discussion? Roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Machi?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Bauer? Haverfield?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Okay. So we do have page 309, and Ed, I'll let you talk about that, and then in our agenda, golf is next.
Where is 309? Right. That was over, so I don't think there's much.
Do we need to discuss anything on 309?
No, that's just the detail of the GO bond.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we'll move into proprietary funds, starting with golf, page 311.
Okay. This is a major change from prior years. We have moved the golf courses to an enterprise fund, which is more consistent with generally accepted accounting principles. Also, as we move this, we will capitalize all of the assets, and they will be recorded on the balance sheet of the golf division. It will have its own balance sheet, its own income statement. A lot of what drove the decision to consider this was, in fact, the upcoming sunsetting of the lease and hopefully purchase of the land that the golf course is on. At that time, we didn't know whether the purchase would be funded externally or internally, just paid for, but in any case, really needed to prepare the fund to be able to record any debt that may have been incurred, might be incurred by the purchase, so that was another reason to set it up as an enterprise fund. The budget this year begins on, let's talk about page 313. This year, we're adding a director of agronomy.
Ed, I need explanation of what that means. Big word. It's anything over 4 letters.
An agronomist is a soil scientist.
Okay, how many out here knew that? There's not. We're not adding. Okay, Jake knew that. I'm proud of you. That NNU education.
Not correct.
Okay, soil, okay.
You said you're not.
Did you know that, Doug?
It,
Darren, let's come to the mic if you would, since we're on golf. Thank you.
For answering my strange question.
I didn't know what it was either.
Well, I just admit to my,
Yeah, so on the director of ergonomy, we don't have that position anymore. We actually just have 2 superintendents. And so to make it correct, we would have director of ergonomy should be 0, superintendent of golf should be at 2. So no changes in staff.
Thank you, Darren.
Okay, except except we
Assistant
have,
golf.
an assistant golf professional. We've asked to get an additional assistant golf professional at Ridgecrest.
So Mayor, so Darren, so do you contract out then if you need somebody to be a soil specialist?
So they are soil specialists. That was just a title. It was an old title.
But you still have somebody that knows what they're doing?
Yeah, the superintendents are soil specialists, so.
Neat, that's a great name.
That's great, thank you. Okay,
Thanks.
I guess we will make the correction within Munis to reflect the fact that we do not have a soil scientist, and we do have 2 superintendents and added a golf professional for a net of an increase of 1. So I thank you for the correction. Page 314. We're looking at hopefully an increase of revenue amongst the 2 golf courses. That would increase by $627,000. It's about a 26% increase overall, primarily coming from greens fees and cart rentals. If we look at the rest of the revenue sources, the net increase for the year would be 21% over the adopted 21 budget. Other areas where we have marked increases would be in regular salaries, the addition of 1 position plus the increased cost for the cost of living, asking for a little bit more overtime, and other than that, I think everything should fall into place with benefits. Bank fees, middle of the page, up 41,000. Again, that's the increase in credit card usage and increase in cost. Building repairs goes up 68,000. Pretty much that would be seal coating and the striping in the parking lot, painting inside the clubhouse, replacing carpet in the clubhouse, and repairing and maintaining some kitchen equipment. Grounds maintenance goes up $10,000. Again, it's the increased cost of fertilizer and top dressing for the fairways and greens. Let's see, fleet services, not much of an increase. What else did I want to bring up? Building and land rental, 195, 2,000. That would be on page 318. Here, Darren budgeted in a potential cost for paying back either the city internally or perhaps borrowing money outside for a lease payment for the buyout of the land. So until this is resolved, we will probably be still at the same rental as we've been paying before. If this is not resolved, obviously what is not spent will fall to fund balance in the golf course. Contracted seasonal labor, we anticipate increased costs on page 319. We go up 101,000. Again, it is to staff all of the various areas of the golf course operation that we do not hire permanent employees for. Minor equipment, at the bottom of the page. Most major cost I see there is engine for the ball picker. I'm sure that has to do with the driving range where we kind of sweep up balls. And that's basically, I would say, the bulk of what I have on the operating budget for the golf course. We do have transfers out externally to the general fund for administrative support, and we will discuss capital, $761,000 when we get to the capital portion of the budget. So overall, that budget is going to run us 357,690 and 22095 18,797. So I would be asking you to approve a budget on the expenditure side of $3,797,085.
Mayor King? Ed, I have a question for you, and probably for Darren, maybe Scott. What I see here, and I briefly understand the banking situation, but not that much. Here is 43,500, and then it doubled to 85,000. So is there a way that we can reduce those costs by credit card, banking? It sounds like we're just getting killed on fees. And I don't know what the bank that you do use for the credit cards or the bank fees.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Victor. Councilman Victor Rodriguez, sorry.
It's okay, Jennifer. Just call me back.
Sorry. Yeah, so we actually did make a change to our credit card processor about 2 years ago. And we are paying a lesser fee than we were paying prior to that. You'll see in the history there for 2020, our numbers were $79,000 for our transactions. The issue is that we have had increased play, increased credit card use, especially during COVID. We were only allowing credit card use, so we were not allowing cash or check, and a lot of people continue to do that and use credit cards. So it's not so much that it's a huge increase in the budget, but that's what our trend has shown, is that people are using credit cards more and our increased play. You also see that increased play in the revenue that's coming through that we're projecting, so.
Oh, okay, good.
And we'll see this again when we get to utility billing. There was a side effect from COVID-19 where people went away from cash or the check because they would do online, and it became the de facto practice to use credit cards. Now, we do want to come back and revisit this as soon as we can, the entire spectrum of credit card fees across the city. That is something that we need to consider. One thing to be considered briefly would be, who should bear the burden of those costs? Is it the city, or should the user of the credit cards? So
Yeah,
we'll
that-
discuss that.
That was it.
Yeah.
The second thing, Doug, is that who should fork the bill on that?
Mayor?
It's on my plate.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Councilman Bauer?
So who are we using for our merchant services? Who do we switch to?
For the golf course, it's CyberGolf. They're the credit card processor.
We chose them because it's reduced
Well,
fees.
we worked together on the contract with them. They provide the equipment. They had a reduced fee, and it seemed to be a good fit for us. It was less than we were paying before. But then they provide the equipment, so we didn't have to do a capital outlay.
Yes, Councilman.
Jennifer, maybe you can answer the question then. 20%, I think it was
Bring your mic.
26% increase in green fees. You think that's sustainable?
We do.
Victor's on a fixed income, and a lot of his buddies are as well.
He's on a fixed police income.
That's right.
And Social Security, remember that.
Yeah, we do. We have seen increased play. We've been extremely busy out there. It's one of the reasons we are requesting the new assistant golf pro is because they're just so busy. We have also increased our rates because we need to cover our lease payment that's going to be coming up. But we do feel like that's sustainable, yes, or attainable.
You know, obviously, that's kind of what we're gonna be entertaining as an option later on, is that process of you guys paying back with interest, $3 million. So, yeah, I'm sure that's why you increased it, but I just wanna make sure it's sustainable. If things happen again and people are short on money, that's usually what they'll choose not to do, is something that's recreational.
Mayor, excuse me. So clarification, though, it's Ridgecrest is allowing more out of city, right, out of community, and Centennial is more geared toward Napa residents, right? So there's a difference in increase in fees, right, Scott?
Yeah, Mayor and Councilman Rodriguez, your question is, are we allowing more outside of the city play? Or can you ask that again?
No, you said about the 26% increase, it's just that one makes more than the other because of just that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our green fee structures are different, for sure.
Right.
Ridgecrest is a more expensive place to play.
Yeah, and as far as Centennial, you can play 9 holes, but at Ridgecrest you can't. You do
Yeah.
18.
Our fee structure is a daily fee structure for a lot of different reasons. One is we have an executive 9-hole golf course, so that would be our 9-hole fee. So we have that 27 holes, but yes, you're correct on
Okay.
that.
No, I just wanted to clarify with Randy what Randy said.
And Councilman Haverfield, just to answer your question or to elaborate a little bit as far as sustainability, as we all know, there's a lot more people coming into the area. Since 2017, we've seen a pretty good uptick. Obviously, with COVID, we saw a really good uptick with play, but it hasn't dropped off at all this year. And just seeing a lot of new faces and new golfers last year due to COVID, but it's our job to keep them, and so far we have. So we do feel that's very sustainable to keep that. Even with, well, the heat, yeah, the heat's a different story. The afternoons are slower now than they were, but still busy comparative to pre-COVID. Still very busy in the morning, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Mayor, just a follow-up question, back to, you're gonna review as far as on the credit card fees and so on. So just education, that we have never, across the board in the city, ever charged the customer
I don't
fee?
think we have, but
And
now, these fees at the golf course are one aspect. Let's consider development services when you have credit, when you have vendors or developers paying significant development fees, $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, and we bear that fee. That's not right.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm all
Yeah.
for you looking at that closely.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that we were letting that go, so,
It's a matter of, I'm sorry, it's a matter of bandwidth. So we can stretch ourselves to the point, and right now it was the budget and COVID-19, and now we're saying, okay, we're getting our feet under us, so let's get the priorities and
now it's a
address
sense
those.
of
Yeah.
urgency, I understand. But, I think most, I don't know what the percentage is, but I think most companies, there's a fee whenever there's
2 to
a
4%.
transaction. And the customer is the one who pays that.
Or they pay by checks.
Or paper checks.
You have you have a cash rate
You
in
have a
my
cap,
office.
it's more though if you pay.
Yeah, in my office, you're gonna pay more if you're gonna use credit
Yeah,
card.
I mean, a bad example, but we have, 700 guest nights in the Alumni House that we run, and if they pay by credit card or whatever, they get charged automatically online a fee.
But it's,
Or you have
partly, it is a very complex issue because we have multiple merchant vendors to work with. Because that's why it's not easy to flip a switch and fix it, but it
understand.
needs to be done.
Please look at, what you're going to, I think.
So in our strategic planning side, we'll take a look at the order of prioritization of which ones we need to address first.
Right.
And where we can create some uniformity in the merchant accounts, but there's some for various reasons that we cannot.
Yeah.
So, but we will absolutely, that'll be our next thing.
So Mayor Kling, I think about, it feels to me like golf is more of a luxury, right, for some people? Whereas utility, we tried really hard to not do any fee increase because of fixed income. You have a lot of older adults who maybe one of their children would set them up on automatic banking just because they might not have the capability to try to check anymore. So I think we need to be thoughtful about if it's a 1.5% to 2% fee on golf versus.
You've hit the other
utility.
complexity on the head, is
Okay.
what we do to those people that are on limited capacity. So, yeah.
Councilman Bauer?
Oh, it seems like it's always changing in my office. I mean, they're so shady, they add fees. It seems I'm switching mine every year, just to get my extra, whatever, in my office, extra 10, 15 grand.
Yeah.
I'm sure for you, it's gonna be.
I mean, the
lot.
potential savings to the city are well worth the effort we put into it. But I would imagine it might take us 6 months to a year to really review it, dig into, identify all the complexities, and determine a policy that's acceptable to the council and to the citizens as how we move forward.
Mayor Kling.
Yes, Councilman?
So here,
Sorry.
Rodriguez. So here, a couple of weeks ago, I did meet with the credit card company that's local. And and this company informed me of all the policies and procedures. And Jacob, I don't know how you do it, dude. It's just a lot that goes in those fees. And so I did reach out to Doug, and we're gonna meet with them and kind of go over that. So we're hopefully, we're gonna take a good look at it. And whether we change or not, it's a different thing, but, you know, it's good to educate ourselves about what fees go in and what fees come out. Yeah, we're gonna, I'm looking forward to the meeting whenever we get done with this stuff. Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Okay, so Councilwoman Levi and then Councilman Haverfield.
Thank you. Kind of to segue on what Councilwoman Mutchie was saying, as far as I was thinking about the low-income or fixed-income people. But I know during COVID, a lot of people demanded you could only use a card. And so it forced people to only use a card, which in the case, if we pass the fee on to them, no matter who they are, they had to pay the fee. The second part of that would be, and yesterday we kind of had a discussion about, and I can't remember which department it was, maybe code enforcement, maybe staggering some of their hours to be more accommodating, is on the same vein as when you have utilities where people can't get in from 8 to 5 to make payments, they're forced once again to go and make a credit card. So if they're going to have to be picking up the tab for using a credit card, we need to make sure that there would be an alternative that they could get in after 5 o'clock and make their cash payment if they needed to. And I'm just saying that for the record, so you guys are taking notes, so when I forget it, when this comes back up, you've already got it on the record.
Well, without going into it, without digressing, the end result might be we charge fees based on the type of service provided. Let's say you're going to be a developer, you can pay the fee. You're a utility billing customer, perhaps you don't. Golf, maybe you pay the fee. It may be that type of of a segregation that drives our policy.
I'm very
Maybe.
open.
Okay, so Councilman Haverfield, and then we need to get back to budget because we have a lot to get done before noon. So Councilman
I know it's a minor item, but I was looking at the detail of expenditures under golf cart maintenance and repairs, and didn't see anything here about adding a roll bar and guardrails for one of them in the event that Dauer Brunner is.
I second that.
Oh, this is,
That was an extended golf cart.
Not here. I just want to make sure that that's a consideration.
That's a really good segue for us to get back into budget. And so we do have a budget before us. I don't, yes, we did have a motion, didn't we? We're still in discussion phase, long discussion. I don't think I railed this one in very well. So I'm not going to ask if there's any further discussion. The motion that was seconded was to approve the golf course budget at $3,797,085. And I think we're ready for roll call.
I don't have a first and
You don't have a I thought we did.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Randy's making, I thought we had.
Second that.
Okay.
As long as the guardrails are added to at least one cart.
I thought that Victor made the motion.
I started to, and then I got sidetracked.
Okay, so
$3,797,085.
$85. Okay, so you have your first and your second. Okay, roll call.
Brunner? Yes. Levi?
Yes.
Bauer? Yes. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Okay. So at this time, just so that we know, we have two action item, well, one action item, one discussion item, plus development services, planning and zoning, water, irrigation fund, wastewater, environmental compliance, sanitation fund, utility billing, and fleet services and engineering yet to do. So, does anyone need a break right now to where we take a quick bathroom break and then we come in and we hit it till we're done?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Are we, okay, so let's take a quick, we're gonna be short, and we're gonna step into development services next.
We don't have a crystal ball. Do we think we're gonna be done at noon?
Uh-huh, that's our intent.
So
Absolutely.
if I put in an order for a meal for Lions Club, do you think I'm okay?
Our intent is to be done. We need to.
Golf cart down there.
All right, I'll put it in.
Okay, we're ready to get started. So we're going to step into the development services budget. And that will be on, well, I'm not sure what page you want to start on. There's quite a few pages there. So I'll let Ed take the reins. And I will say that, you know what, guys, our goal is to be done at noon. And so we're going to keep it moving at this point. We're going to have to just stay very true to budget because we have a lot to get done in the next 2 hours. So,
I'm zipped. I'm going to keep my mouth shut and let Ed talk.
So for this section, there's a replacement page as well, if you haven't put that one in. The new page numbers on it actually say 339 and 340, I believe, but it's going to replace pages 325 and 326. Sure. It's the personnel summary table. It's 325 and 326 are the original, and you're going to replace it with 339 and 340.
so we're going to get rid of that.
Correct. And again, the page number differences are because we added in some section breaks to make the budget book a little bit easier to follow, so it pushed some of the page numbers up.
Okay. Mayor, are we ready? Okay. Development services consists of two sub-funds, one being Division of Building and Safety, and the other one Planning and Zoning. The first one we will consider is Building and Safety, where we issue the permits for residential and commercial buildings. Interestingly enough, Chris has a chart up here that just gives you a picture of revenue over the last few years. A big increase, obviously, was from 2019 up to 2020. Basically, the big increase there is partially Amazon, as well as continued growth in the city. This year, we've leveled off to 5 million is our expectation. Our actual budget this year was for 3.4 million in revenue. And we are exceeding that. Right now, we're at approximately 4.8 million in revenues coming into development services. And my hypothecation, along with Patrick, when we get our Ouija board out to figure out where we will be, I think that we may add almost another million by the end of the year if things keep going at the rate that they are. Now, none of us has the crystal ball to accurately predict the future, but here we've got our rose-colored glasses on, and I think somewhere between 5 million and probably 5.5 is not out of the question.
Mayor Kling, I'm sorry, and this is budget, I apologize. I just want to ask a question as it comes up. How are we on par, or do we have parity with other municipalities around permit fees?
I don't know that. Is Patrick here?
I'm not sure that we can.
Is this not on?
It is. Go ahead and speak.
Anyway, I think Meridian is probably about 20% higher in revenue than we are. And I would probably say that the city of Boise is probably 3 to 4 times higher just because of their volume.
So is that something we're looking at?
We will be looking at permit fees later this year.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, is Jean's question related to the actual cost of a permit or the total number of permits and the value?
Permit fees,
So the actual permit fee.
cost of the fee.
Mayor and,
That's the answer he gave you.
Oh, okay,
right, I was just talking about volume.
right,
But our fees are not that, our fees are, I think Boise is looking at a fee study and they're going to be increasing fees. We're working on a fee study right now with Galena Consulting, and we'll have something to bring to you probably in September. I would imagine that our commercial fees are fine, our residential new construction is fine. It's all the subcontractor fees are probably about, like a basic electrical fee. If you're going to just do one circuit at house, it's $29. It's $100 for Boise. So it's really the small fees, the small project fees where there's a disparity. However, commercial, we're actually a little bit higher than Boise on our rate, and residential, we're probably on par.
Okay, so my point is that I think with hearing how understaffed you've been, if the volume is increasing, are we actualizing, realizing the fee structure that we should be relative to the amount of work you all are putting in with increased volumes?
We've been experiencing surpluses for many years. We've also grown. We've almost doubled the size of our department since I started here in 2013, based on growth every year. And we've kind of hit a wall on being able to hire people because of the job market nationally for this type of profession. We do have 3 new hires currently that we're trying to hire, but they've been open for quite some time. And then we have a few more openings proposed in this FY22 budget.
So one more graph, if we go all the way to the bottom, Chris, we can see the trend there on building permits. Looking at 2021, remember that the year is not over, and we probably are working with May information. So we are on a steady growth pattern up. So from there, let's talk about personnel. And we'll be quick here. This is a self-sustaining fund. So in order to meet the workload, we're moving from 24 positions up to 27 positions in 22. Major variances in operating costs. The first one, banking fees. We are boosting up by $310,000 as the use of, this is on page 340.
340, thank you. 340 is water.
We added this.
I'm sorry, 340 this one, I'm sorry. This 340, the new page.
The new pages, but in the council book, I'm hoping 340 is development fees, development services. So yes, we're going up 310,000. Expansion of the use of debit cards and credit cards for large transactions is driving this. I was surprised when Michelle was telling me how woefully under budgeted we were, or we are for this year, at 90,000 on banking fees. And after consulting with her, I felt 4,000 was probably a better number to be prepared for in bank fees. Supplies expense, modest increase of 310,000, 30,000. Basically, expansion of staff drives that. Fleet services is up 52,000. As I look at fleet services, we're going to be adding a couple of inspection vehicles. So our baseline for maintenance is $11,999, and 2 vehicles will run us approximately $54,000. Motor fuel, again, we understand is on an upward trajectory cost-wise, and adding 2 more vehicles will increase usage. IT transfers. It's a combination of expansion in the network and switches, as Butch had spoken to yesterday. But if you look on page 328, midway down the page, we are absorbing the EnerGov support license for all departments, and we're adding 7 users. And we're adding Socrata annual fee for $7,000, and that totals up to the $213. Engineering allocation on page 340 is a new $357,000, and that reflects the movement of Dan Badger's engineering outfit from general fund account, which was allocated through administrative transfers to an actual expense, and this is what we expect the cost of engineering support to be for development services. Let's see, beyond that, I would say beyond that, we have $43,000 increase on page 327 for equipment less than 10,000. And that's pretty much detailed out for you on page 329 as workstation expense for expansion for building and admin, workstation expense for planning and zoning, and workstation expense for desk and plan review, and basic $25,000, which will take care of some budgeted growth in the NDSC building. Contractual services. If you take a look at page 329, we have outsourced plan review, 2,080 hours at 110. This consists of plan review services that Pat does not feel we can bring in-house because of the expertise needed. We also have at the bottom, if we look at the 332,000, that should not be 4166 hours at 110, but this number is somewhat contingent upon our ability to attract staff and hire staff. If we are successful in hiring staff, this amount could go down by approximately 104,000. Okay? So this is a planning number. And so those are the highlights really of building services. We do have some capital that we would like to consider in the capital portion of the budget presentation of $135,430. So we are asking you at this point to move in a total expenditure of $5,111,791 for development services. And here, within that, we would like to amend the head count by 1. This is the senior director position that we paused the recruitment on and failed to budget dollars and headcount this year. And again, I take responsibility for that. I took the pause as we're not moving forward. The pause is, well, we're going to take a broader look around. Right now, looking at the development services budget and knowing that we can come back next year for an amendment, I would like to work with the available resources in the budget to at least allow for the recruitment of that position and the hiring of the individual, and then come back mid-year and patch up. It is not a problem for us to do that. It will not strain development services in any way. We have sufficient fund balance, and this year we will drop even more money to the bottom line. How much, I don't know, but it will probably be $500,000 or more.
Thank you, Ed. So Councilman Bruner.
I just had one question going back. Help me with the travel transportation for code hearings, 60,000, which was not in the budget a year ago, but is this year. What is that about? Maybe that's a Patrick question.
That's a Patrick question.
Mayor and Councilman Brunner, in years past, we skipped last year going to code hearings, but typically we have 4 designated people that go to national code hearings on every other year, and this is one of those years. So
These are a conference type?
this is where building officials and designees from building departments go, and we actually vote on amendments to International Building Code and Mechanical Code. It's
So it's in person, it's not.
It's
It's not a Zoom or team type opportunity.
it's in person, and you have electronic voting devices, and we would be working on the 2024 code, I think it is.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry, Patrick, but it's the option, there's not an option.
There is
to
not.
Do it virtually?
that's correct. And then some of it also is to, half of our continuing ed is in Boise, and half of it is usually in another part of the state through our state Building Official Association for all of our inspectors, plans of years to get sufficient continuing ed every year. And so we usually send about 4 or 5 people to the one in Coeur d'Alene, and that's usually a 3-day event with, 2-night stay.
4 times a year for 3 or 4 people?
No, two times a year. We have Boise 1 time a year, and then that's usually in September, and then in January.
$7,500 per person per opportunity.
No, I mean, the 60, the detail probably needs to be vetted out and spread out a little bit more. We would send 4 people to the National Code Convention, and then we would probably send 4 or 5 people to Coeur d'Alene.
Out of Idaho.
Nationals out of Idaho, that's correct.
I think next year we'll break it down in more detail because
Right.
it's, yeah.
We'll break, we had more detail, but we ended up consolidating that 60,000 number. We had in a couple different line items, so the detail revisions
Yeah,
didn't
you're
follow.
probably getting my point. The one, there's not too many positives of COVID, but I think one thing it has taught us that we can do things from a distance rather than have to be in person and be paying hotel bills and
Right.
et cetera. So anyway, that's just my
Okay.
opinion.
Mayor,
Thank you. Councilman
Patrick,
Haverfeld.
just a quick question as far as on contractual services, the 2,080 hours, is that to one firm? Is that to one individual? I know Jim Main has done that as an service for you in the past. How are you outsourcing? Is it multiple people, multiple firms?
Well, we will be putting out an RFQ for, in FY '22 for inspection and plan review services. Will be,
That includes inspection services?
right.
Okay, I just said.
There's 2 line items. There's outsourced plan review services, and in the past, we've used Safe Built, and we have used West Coast Code Consulting in Salt Lake. And then as far as inspection services, we've used local people, and then we've also used Safe Built. But we don't have those contracts in place for FY '22. We'll actually be going out for an RFQ
So is it a
for
single
those.
year term contract? Is that what it is?
We're actually able to access Safe Built through an Omnia piggyback contract, and we're actually bringing one of those forward here next Monday just to get us through the rest of this year with Safe Built.
So I think the question that you were just asking was, would we work within this budget for an annualized contract? And my thought is, we would not exceed this budget.
We
Because
would,
what you're being
right.
authorized is the budget, which would, then you'll come forward for the authorization to go out for an RFP. And then we'll also, from council, authorize the outcome of the RFP. But right now, we're just approving the budget, and we won't exceed that budget unless we have to come in for authorization.
And-
Not
and
to
if-
exceed that.
And if we're able to hire both an inspector and then also a plans reviewer, that'll cut it down significantly, and it also depends on our workload going forward in FY '22.
It's a considerable amount of money. If we can get someone on staff as opposed to having to outsource at a higher rate.
Absolutely.
Right, and that's our goal. That's our
Absolutely.
primary goal, is to do that before going out.
Thank you. Okay, so are there any further questions on the development services budget? If not, we'd stand for a motion to approve the budget at $5,111,791. Is that correct, Ed?
Yes.
Okay.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any additional discussion?
and that includes the amended by one head count, right?
Yes, thank you. Is that amended by one hand? Thank you. Okay. Roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Bauer? Yes. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Yes.
So at this time, I'd like to pause and go back to the different section of our agenda, which is to approve the appointment of a new senior director of development services. So I think the council's aware that we actually had posted that position. And I don't have a handout for you today on that. I had sent an email with the resume and everything. So we had gone out for an original appointment. And I'm going to pause right now. We can have the appointee join us via Teams via phone call. Okay, if you would like. If that's not necessary, we will have you meet him via in-person sometime in the immediate future, if we don't need to get on right now. So are you guys okay? Okay, so I think we're okay. We don't need to have him get on. Okay, so the process, we had gone out for, posted the position for Senior Director of Development Services. At that time, this particular candidate, we did not move forward with because this skill set was very strong in economic development. With Beth Einig taking the position with BVEP, I went back to this particular candidate and visited with Councilman Haverfield, who actually had the same thought that I did. When we have a very strong candidate that's strong in economic development with that change, that it would be good to reconsider that. So we reconvened a committee, and I've sent an email out to everyone. I won't go through all the names. We had a committee process. The two council members that participated were Councilman Haverfield and Councilman Rodriguez. And we went through an interview process, and the consensus of that team was to move this candidate forward. The name of the candidate is Cliff Long. Cliff Long was the prior Director of Economic Development for the City of Nampa. He then went to Renton, Washington. He's been serving in that capacity there. The organizational structure there is actually very similar to the direction that we would be going. And as I've shared with our team here, the intent with the Senior Director of Development Services, and I think we've talked about all this because this is the second time around on it, is to create the unity, bringing the teams of the building services, planning and zoning, economic development, rather than it being guided at the mayor's level. And what I'm trying to look forward to is the day when I'm not here, that we have an organizational structure of the commonality of working together and to really help us move forward as a city in our community development, which is happening. We've got amazing people doing great jobs. This is someone that's going to just help continue with the continuity of that department. So with that, Cliff Long is the recommended appointee. We did change the ordinance a while back to where this position is appointed by City Council rather than just a hire by the mayor. And I feel like that's important, that the council has the opportunity to make that decision. So with that, are there any questions? Discussion, comments?
Mayor, I'll make a comment. In dialoguing with him, I was impressed with the mere fact that he's dealing in King County in Washington, which is one of the, and I mentioned to him that I had worked on a project in King County, and they were about the worst in the country to have to deal with regulations. Washington is very deep and required regulations, second only to Boise. So Renton is very, to me, because of the two agencies that I've worked with. So his involvement in Renton pretty much gives him, because its population is based about the same, the quality control, the regulation, it will be a refresher for him to come back here and not have to deal with that level of regulation there with that county. But I was impressed with the fact that he hired Beth, not only for the city of Nampa, but prior when he was with the state. And her recommendation of him was very strong. And so, and he's a gentleman. He's the type of guy it's not going to be flashy. He's not going to wow you with his personality. He's going to wow you with his work ethic and his ability to retain staff. So I was very impressed with that. And when I heard that Beth was leaving, my first thought was Cliff. And so whether it's an interim or long-term, that's up to him and his family. But being able to move back here, I think, is a strong statement that he wants to live in Nampa, and that was one of the requirements that I had for that position as well. I'd like to have him be a city resident and not just a valley resident.
And I will say that his intent is to be in this area. He did say he can't guarantee it because right now the housing situation is a little challenging, but he used to live in Nampa. He said he loves this community. He's anxious to get back to this community. And as Beth said, Cliff is somewhat quiet, but she said he gets things done. And I think that's a great attribute, and I think he'll be an asset to come back. So,
What's the timeline you're hoping?
well, I think because he has a home to sell, and so pending this decision here, he will give notice there. But he needs to sell his home, and I think I'm going to give him probably till September, at least September 1, to work on. It's not quite 2 months, actually, so it could be into September a little bit. I've had a planning session with Beth and Robin last week to figure out how to accomplish what we need to accomplish in this interim time. And so I think knowing that we have a direction, I would love to be able to have him not start until he can come in and get his feet on the ground and actually be able to focus and put it all forward. So it'll probably be at least September 1 before he comes in. So hopefully then.
And he'll be stationed out of the development building?
He will be in Beth's office. And so with this transition, one thing that's positive is that we don't need to do a reconfiguration of offices. So he will office in Beth's office, which sits right in between everyone on the first floor.
I'll make a motion to approve Cliff Long as the new senior development, or senior director of economic development.
Of Development Services.
Development Services, my apologies.
Thank you.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Werner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Bauer? Yes. Haverfield?
Yes.
Mucci?
Okay, thank you. So TJ, you can let Cliff know he's approved. He's listening. Okay, there we go. Well, congratulations.
Good luck in the house, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, we look forward to having him join the team. So thank you.
You have an extra bedroom, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so the next budget is planning and zoning.
Planning and zoning begins on page 334.
Excuse me.
We're asking here for one position, which would be a senior planner, which would increase our headcount from 7 to 8 positions. On the revenue side, we bring in a little bit of revenue, and what you see as the large amount of $985.43 is the major funding source for planning and zoning. It is a transfer from fund balance each year from the Development Services Fund. Hopefully over the years, we can find other sources of revenue for planning and zoning. Wages go up modestly as there have been changes over the years to the staff, and so the increase here is for the addition of the planner. Also, we'll take care of the 3%. Health insurance is the big increase as we budget at top of the scale for anybody coming in. In other words, we anticipate whoever comes to work for the city will come with a family. That may not be the case, and if not, the cost will be less and obviously fall back to fund balance. Computer hardware is the next major increase that we have. And if I can flip over to my detail. We're bringing in a new, I believe, a new software system, and I can remember some of the discussion with council some time back. It's an Aon system. Will require the setup, and also there's the cost of supporting the new hire. If you wish to talk about the details of the system, Rodney, I believe, is here and can enlighten you more than what I can. The other major increase is in the engineering line for $173,000. And this is what it cost Rodney for support from Dan Badger's engineering division. Bottom of the page, contractual services, increases by $30,000, and that is for the Midland Boulevard corridor study, plus continue for codification of changes to planning and zoning through Muni Code. I have to tell you that Rodney is a budget officer's dream. He doesn't want anything. He doesn't need any increases typically, and whatever he has is extremely straightforward, and I always appreciate Rodney. So we are asking that Rodney's budget be, planning and zoning be approved at $1,141,843.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Yes.
Just when the budget comes out, budget hearing comes out, you said, I think I heard you say yesterday that you'll have these totals.
Yeah, so what we're going to do between now and the public hearing is make the adjustments that you have asked us to make to the budget, and we will make sure that the schedules reflect the bottom line expenditure and match to what the ordinance will be.
Yeah, so the amount that is in here is what is being approved, so we're not, again, writing it down each time. And I guess we made that comment yesterday that it's gonna be so much clearer for next year. To have
Yes,
it-
we'll actually try to make it clearer for this year as well.
So will we be getting an updated budget book? Or just updated pages?
I think probably it may be easier to run an entire new book because there have been pages that have been changed since this budget book has come out. We're actually dealing with an older version. We put in dividers. I think you had asked for dividers. We've put in dividers. So the page numbering is a little different. And so a new budget book is in order. It's not that big a deal to print for you guys.
Thanks. I got the binder.
We'll just charge it back to council.
Take it out of my salary.
Okay. It's a
Darrell's
deal.
salary. Or Darrell's.
You can take it out of mine, just don't include his.
Don't touch mine.
So I'm surprised, Councilman Leva, woman.
So it's been moved and seconded, and we are in the discussion phase on the planning and zoning budget. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Oh, Munchy.
Yes.
Sorry. Haverfield?
Yes.
And Bauer.
Okay, water.
Okay. My hat is off to Tom Points and his staff. You don't see it in any one place, but Public Works is managing a budget of $133 million across all funds. Jennifer's,
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. This is a replacement page as well, and this one's a little bit more confusing because of the changes in page numbering. It's not a front and back. So you may not want to take out the old ones, just put this one in and cross out the personnel summary on page 340. And your replacement page is 355.
However, the thing that's confusing, when we say it's page 355, but it's setting at page 341, 40 and 41. So the last one was very confusing, because it's not page 355 in our book.
That's correct, because you guys have the original budget version, and since then, we've added in those dividers and added things that change the page numbers out. So these new ones that are revised, unfortunately, have
It
those
goes
new
into
page
page
numbers as well.
340.
Correct.
Right,
Yep.
thank you. Thank you.
So we're crossing out 340 and crossing out 341.
Correct, and you'll have
We're adding
355.
355 and 356.
That's correct.
You really
It's
wanna
just
be
not a
confused.
clean front and back one pager.
You really want to be confused, it's 358 on the thumb drive that TJ gave me.
That's enough to keep you going.
Smoke and mirrors, smoke and mirrors.
We'll look forward to having a new book, actually, with all correct page numbers, dividers, and everything. Thank you.
okay.
Okay.
So, we're adding 1.17 positions to the water fund. Again, these are all self-funded positions. So, revenues on page 356. Revenues here are pretty much driven by the 5% rate increase when we look at water customers. Again, can't stress enough the importance of the full rate increase in order to generate enough funding for capital projects. You may remember in the introductory section, I had included a 10-year history of items that were budgeted out of rates for capital improvement and expansion. Some projects were canceled due to not enough funding from rates. So in order to continuously lay down new infrastructure, as fast as you're putting it down, you're coming behind yourself and trying to update part of that 100-year-old system. And I think, as I remember, when I was looking through the information on the water fund, I think we've got about 500 miles of pipe throughout the city. Okay, next major increase is water hookup fees. This is mainly due to growth in the system as we bring new customers on. Fund balance budget, we bring forward $3 million as we consider our capital program in the water fund. Each year, we bring forward an amount of money to be used for capital. Regular salaries holds pretty much stable. PL buyout, again, part of the one-time. Taxes go up just a little. Percy goes up just a little. And health insurance goes up quite a bit. If you look at years 19 and 20, you can see that health insurance was budgeted in the $400,000 range. This year, it dropped down to $277,000. Here, we are under budgeted, but we'll make it within the existing budget, so I'm not concerned about the fact that somehow we are under budgeted. So this year's budget reflects what we actually think we're going to spend out. And I'll just take a pause here. One of the things that we have found with Munis is it's very difficult to consistently, accurately budget benefits. And because of that, we have found a lot of swings in health insurance because health insurance is actually tied to an individual. And as we move individuals, we're finding that not always does the appropriate amount move. Chris and I have talked about actually doing a lot of forecasting for fringe benefits outside of Munis and then plugging back into Munis. It is one of the shortfalls. The other shortfall that we consistently run into is on position control. So again, we'll put our creative hats on and see what we can do to smooth the system out. So again, I take responsibility for the under budgeting in this year's budget for health insurance, and am glad that we are on track for next year. Gosh, hard being the budget officer sometimes. That being said, fleet services goes up 138,000. And if we take a look at fleet services, which I'm sure I've got highlighted on page 343, we are planning on adding replacing a 2001 Ford 550, which will have an exerciser body on it, and that is the major increase in fleet. We have a baseline of about $155,000 that we are budgeting for ongoing costs. The next major increase we want to take a look at here on waterworks would be repair and maintenance of equipment, $125,000. And my repair and maintenance line is on page 343 and consists of unscheduled repairs of $100,000 and a 23 scoping of preventive maintenance and electrical upgrades that are necessary. And of course, we've got our ongoing pump maintenance program. So that really takes care of repairs and maintenance. IT transfers on page 343, going over to 344. Pretty much, I think most of the detail would be on 344, where we have budgeted at the bottom of that section $77,000 for meter software and data hosting, and $77,000 for upgrades in new meters, okay, as we transition. So within those two lines, I would say that's the bulk of the upgrade cost. Next one is pipes and fitting. Also on page 344 for the detail. Here, pipes and fittings are going up $50,000, and it's within, hold on, pipes and fittings, yes. On 344, midway down, obviously it's inventory that we're bringing in. Meter parts, $536,000 on the same page, 344, next one down. That's going up $536,000. A lot of that's growth related and also replacements. Engineering allocation. We can see that the engineering allocation is at $515,000. Some of that is directly related to water itself, okay, for support from Dan Badger, and some of that also is allocated to water, but as UB cost. Has to do with utility billing.
Ed, can I ask you a quick question on that? Those are estimates. Unless, is that a is that a direct transfer that it's a cost that is going to be incurred, or is it going to be based on usage,
It's,
that expense?
right now, for '22, this is our initial year. This is what we think it's going to cost, okay? From here, we get a baseline as to what service is actually going to be in the future. Dan keeps extremely good records. I've had an opportunity to look at them earlier this year and last year, so I think these are pretty accurate costs. And we have not figured any more money in Dan's account than what we know we think we need to recover. If the cost is less, the cost goes down.
I was just looking, I don't see Daniel in here unless I'm missing it. So I think what I would ask, and this is an operational thing, but I think it's going to be important that, and Tom, this is all in your department, but that Daniel, and let's say in this case Keith, or Daniel, and all these different departments, planning and zoning, I think Rob, there's Daniel, that we actually do a reconciliation on a monthly basis, that we sign off on those, and then that'll be great because next year we'll have a benchmark. I mean, we'll have the benchmark for this year because this is the first year, but I'm just thinking operationally, let's just make sure we do a monthly, a truing up, that this is what we actually used and it gets approved by the department head so that we don't end up at the end of the year with a surprise. So that just as I'm thinking of it.
Right. So
It's
in a
really
fund,
for Tom and Daniel.
in a fund such as engineering, where it's driven by the most part by personal services, rendering a service to another agency, the goal of an internal service fund is if you over-recover in any one year, okay, that you take that over-recovery and you roll that into your rates for the following year, so that the goal is to constantly break even. So if you reach a year where you dip, the dip gets folded into the next year. If you over-recover in that year, you keep rolling, so that over the long run, you break even at no retained earnings, no fund balance.
But as we go through actuals and departments get charged, my expectation is that they're signing off, that, like their invoice, that we actually are tracking the usage of whatever that
Yes.
project is, it gets billed accordingly, and that there's an agreement departmentally as we move through the year. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So, other than, excuse me, other than the capital portion of this, I think there's really not a lot to look at here as far as other expenses. They're pretty consistent year to year. Everything is very well detailed. Jake, leading the budget team for Public Works, has ensured that everybody has provided you with adequate detail to make decisions on. So I would ask that, in fact, we take the water fund, part one, because we've got to move on to irrigation, and you approve a budget of total revenues, including use of fund balance, at $14,650,424.
Could you say that one more time?
Oops, I'm sorry,
Say that.
wrong number.
Correct.
I've missed a transfer, so Jamie's number is $15,648,404.
So moved, Mayor.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mayor,
Yes.
can I ask a question about team building? Maybe for Daniel or whoever. Notice that there's, again, this is just more about morale and whatever, but there's seminars for leadership and team building through BSU. And then there's separate leadership training for just Public Works. How many people participate in these seminars?
Those are line items that were put in through, I believe, So I'm not sure exactly.
Because there's continuing education credits listed as well, and how many people actually are required to have continuing education credits? Are these seminars meant to build up so that there's a continuity of leadership training and morale building that's throughout? There's quite a bit of money that's associated with it, smaller amounts, obviously, but just want to make sure that there's equal opportunity given.
Yeah, so Mayor, Council Haverfield, so we have, the BSU team building seminar we put this in the water section, to build up that succession planning, for Keith's group.
Are those certification courses then for the individuals that attend?
Yeah, so it'll be for his assistants that attend those, and then the people under the assistants getting those people trained. So this is basically for 1 or 2 people to attend. And then we also have some culture 360 culture money. I'm not sure if that's in here too. Yeah, right there. That's some funding that we set aside for Jamie's team to assist with some of the training she's putting out for the city. Yep.
So it's just the leadership element then in the department that are getting the benefit of these training seminars? Is that?
Right.
Okay. And the continuing education credits usually that accompany these are for them because they're required to have continuing education credits per year. Is that correct?
Well, in the leadership part, it's not necessarily required as part of their job on the technical end, but we're like I said, we're trying to groom some leaders to take charge of this group when Keith retires. We do have technicians that have their water certifications and those are in the budget in the training items, in the training line items.
I don't need to get in the weeds. I just wanted to make sure that there's opportunity in again, team building and foundational support.
So we actually have a couple of different things in the budgets, and this is something that we're actually focusing on this next year. So in the budget, you've got certain certifications and ongoing skill set training that's very specific to the position. And so that's really guided by the leadership within Public Works and the various departments. But we all also, from the city and from Jamie and the workforce development side, we're looking at supervisor training, director training, leadership training for succession planning. And what we'll be communicating to all the departments is any outsourcing of that needs to really be approved through our office, even if it's in a budget, because we're actually working at developing internally. That's why we have workforce development in place and the skill set that we do, so that we can have a uniform training and that training and supervisory and that advancement opportunity internally. Due to workloads, we haven't launched it at the extent that we're going to. We've begun, but we will be focusing on that. And so you really have two different things. You've got specific skill sets, certifications, and training opportunities that are outside of that we don't train for internally because it's a very specific. And then we'll do the secondary and we'll have discussions about the other.
Because it goes into that.
Internal. Mm-hmm.
It's just a part of the broader subject of contractual services. I mean, if we're building up and then hiring from internal positions, and that's like, hiring your family, keeping them involved. So it's just a better process, and I just wanted to make sure that opportunity's been thought out and being given.
It is. That's succession planning, and we want to promote from within. We want people to feel like they have an opportunity here and to stay. Good questions. Yes, Councilwoman Levi.
Thank you, Mayor. Ed, is this proposed budget, is it the one with the water, is it, I'm trying to think of the word I'm looking for. Are the numbers coming from the fact that we are taking the increases in the water? Yes. So are you projecting that when that comes up before us again this year, we're going to take the 9%, full 9%? Okay.
There's a 16.75% increase to support the wastewater bond.
So for instance, on the water, approving this budget today, are we kind of committing ourselves to taking the increase?
Yes.
My next question would be, then, with all of the new residents that we've had moving in, are they, and their user fee, are they picking up any of that slack? Is it reducing our commitment to having to take an increase?
We don't have an impact fee for wastewater, all water. So there is really no mechanism for growth to pay for growth. So it's handled through what we take in.
I'd like to answer that, though, real quickly. So Tom has been working, and Tom can speak to this.
can-
Would
I
you
can
speak
talk to
to the
that, yes.
utility fee, impact
Yeah.
fee? Thank you.
So we have all our calculations done for a utility impact fee, which includes wastewater, domestic water, and irrigation. And so the revenue sources for the utilities are rates, hookup fees, and then the developers that install the lines to serve their own subdivision. And then this additional impact fee will be a fourth revenue stream. So what we've noticed that we use the Supreme Court case for the hookup fee, and ideally that's supposed to pay for growth. What we're seeing is that it doesn't quite pick it all up, and there's other projects that aren't being picked up by the hookup fee. So that's why we wanted to look at this utility impact fee. And the process is August to go through the impact fee committee, then we'll bring it forward to council. But I'll just give you a couple examples. The hookup fee for irrigation is about $1,000 per unit, and then we pulled out all the growth-related projects out of the irrigation CIP and came up with another $1,000 for an impact fee. And then wastewater is about $2,800 hookup fee, and then we came up with around $1,700 worth of growth-related, which includes some of the work at the plant as well. So those are some numbers. So we're excited about this program. The numbers make a lot of sense, and we're very close to presenting this summer.
Follow up, please. So I appreciate that, and maybe I wasn't clear on my question. So with the with the rates with additional residents, are they just paying for service only, or are we getting any extra off of what a ratepayer pays?
Right. So we are gaining more revenue through our rates. That's in our budget. But if you recall on water specifically, we're still not meeting the goals of what we needed to replace our lines. We're trying to get 5 miles a year, and we're about 1. So those additional rates that are coming in are going into maintenance to fund the lines. So every year we can get closer to that goal. So that's where those funds are going.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, just a quick question, just education. I thought anything over 5% had to go before the citizen body. Under 5%, it could go ahead and get the rate could increase. And I just dreamed that somewhere.
5% requires a public hearing.
Public hearing.
But I've been asking
I thought Ed said we were increasing by more than 5%.
No, 5%. On the sewer side, wastewater, which we haven't gotten to yet, we have estimated that for the foreseeable future, we will have to increase rates 16.75% year over year to meet the cost of our.
Then a public hearing would need to be held for those.
Yes.
So if it's right at 5%, there's no public hearing.
Well, yeah, well, on the utilities
end.
end,
So go ahead.
on the utilities end, I've been asking my staff to have a public hearing for anything, any rate increase, just for the transparency of it.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. That's great. Okay. Are there any further questions? I believe we've had a motion and a second on this particular action item to approve the water fund at $15,648,404. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Bauer? Machi?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
I want to mention something, if you don't mind, and this isn't the best place, but it's fresh on my mind. While it's there, I'd like to mention it. Next year, I would like to have the variances in the book, and I'd love to have and we talked about it earlier, but we couldn't do it this year, and I understand we could not, but if at all possible, let's go ahead and have the prior year comparison data in the detail. Or it needs to be called out in a variance, because what we're doing is we're spending a lot of time having to verbally go over all of these. This could be so fast we could be done in minutes on these if we didn't have to do that. But I know when we see the variance, we don't, like when I go to the detail, I don't know what is the increase because I can't compare to last year. And so let's work this next year as we refine the book, because I think, and the reason I'm saying it with council here, do you guys agree with that? Yes. Would that be fine with you? Because I think we'll be able to go a lot faster. Okay, I think see a thumbs up. While council's here, while it's fresh on our minds.
So are we talking about the extreme variances, Mayor?
Well,
Because I can read through all this, but it'd be nice if there's 5 big variances for those just to be
yes, to
emphasized.
be called out somewhere, whether it be on a
And-
sheet.
and, yeah, they would not need to be verbalized.
Right, so where Ed's having to verbalize and go over those, unless you guys just want to say, hey, we see the variances, do we have any questions?
I think this is something we need to come back and dialogue a little bit more after to find out what's the best solution. We have structural limitations on what we can get in and fit on any one page. So I agree, let's find a way.
Maybe we just
but-
do a sheet. I
Yeah,
think just a
but-
variance overview, so you don't have to read it. It's in front of us. We read it before we get here. We glance and we're done.
We'll find a way to get you what you
Thank
need.
you.
But
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so wastewater. And I think we have a new sheet on, no, excuse me, irrigation's
Irrigation.
next and then wastewater. Okay.
Irrigation is on page 348. There is no head count associated with the irrigation fund. Basically, this really just supports the purchase of water, irrigation water from the various vendors, the irrigation districts, supports capital expenditures to maintain and improve irrigation, extend irrigation. We're asking to spend $8,711,334.
$8,711,334 is what?
Correct.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Second was Bauer. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Turner?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
And then wastewater's the sheet, the additional sheet that we're putting in?
So my wastewater begins on 352. 369 for you folks, okay. So the most significant change here is that on personnel count, we're asking to increase by 4.17 positions. Again, wastewater is a self-sustaining fund. So if there are no questions on the position count, we can move over to taking a look at wastewaters. Revenues. Again, on page 354, charges for services, the increase is primarily due to rate increase. Same with industrial sewer charges, hookup fees, growth, the increase, and obviously the big one here is the DEQ loan proceeds, which are being drawn this year amounting to $50.6 million to support the wastewater treatment plant upgrade. Salaries increased by $599,000 to support the positions. Health insurance goes up by $222,000. Again, there is concern that we under-budgeted this year, so it doesn't cost us, obviously, $222,000 to support 4 employees, so change in direction here. Computer licenses and software down the page, the $2,500 and the $9,000 support the new individuals. Fleet services is the baseline, plus we're asking to replace a 2002 Astro van. This can be found on page 357, I'm sorry. Middle of the page about, we're also asking to replace 2002 Chevrolet C2500. And this will be a new pickup with a mechanic's body. That's what drives the cost on that truck. And also growth in staff asks for the purchase of light-duty pickup for $29,425. And that primarily takes care of the increase in fleet. Motor fuel, same story as the others. Growth here of $72,000 is driven by cost increase plus increased usage. Maintenance and repair of equipment is on page 357. The increase there is $112,000. And we would be looking at parts for TV, camera repair, CCTV replacements, $24,000 for one that's 17 years old. Maintenance and repair, we've got pump repair, equipment repair, and contracted services repair, which is work performed by outside crews. All of that is driving the increase on the maintenance line. The next one is engineering services, internal, of $467, okay? And actually on page 355, this is a good example as any where you can look at the repair, the engineering services internal, and look to the bottom of the page and actually see interfund transfers going down by $589,000. Not a dollar for dollar, but you know that's the trade-off. Okay. Let's see. Contracted services in-house is going to be utility billing, and small increase of $63,000 there. And we can discuss the details of the increase when we get to utility billing. What else did I think was important here? Lab supply, vehicles under, equipment under 10,000, we've got a $9,000 increase there. And that is for UTV, for staff to travel around the plant construction project, facilitate efficient communications and getting from one end to the other. We had talked about perhaps using a golf cart, but due to the terrain and the mud, UTV seems to be the more efficient vehicle and will certainly have use after the plant is completed. Lab supplies are what they are, going up. Again, if you look at the city of Nampa over the last couple of years, we have added population equivalent to a small city itself. When I come into Nampa every day through Route 16 and hit the Nampa County line, I'm always impressed that the sign says 81,100 and some odd citizens. Really, we are at 110,980. So the growth in all of these issues, chemicals, lab supplies and whatnot, cost of contracts, maintenance contracts going up. We do have a drop of 138,000 in contractual services, which is a savings for us. But that's basically it until we get to capital. As I explained before, between water and sewer, I think we're at, what, $69 million in capital improvements. So the total budget that we're asking for is, I believe, I think it should be 483,000. And we'll just ask Jamie to run a total one more time as we are 100,000 apart.
I have a question. I keep seeing the grants coordinator position pop up in several of our budgets. At the
How
end of
can
this
that be?
budget
I guess you're
process,
right.
will we have a full person
It's going blind.
hired?
It's .17, yeah. We will have a real person.
All the arms and legs are attached, so it will be one. person.
Whose department will that person be in?
It'll be a report up through me in finance, but with very strong dotted relationships to Public Works, Police, FJC, and others.
I just want to make sure we have a whole person at this.
That's what I'm applying.
Well,
So we'll drop it from a .19 to a .0.
I'm gonna save you lots of- Yeah.
All right.
That
So,
would be a reduction in percentage.
Okay, Ed, what's our total?
yes, so there are two parts to this budget. This one is the wastewater treatment plant and wastewater piece, and we're asking for $71,383,579.
Say it one more time, 71,383.
579.
It's all through the SRF.
No more flushing. So move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi? Bauer?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
And Bird?
Yes.
So we still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items yet. We're going to have to move it quickly. So
Okay.
Ed, just hit the high points, and council, ask questions if you have questions, but I don't know that we need to just go, I'd like to hit the material items where the council's going to have questions, if we could.
Okay.
You don't need to go through every variance.
I don't think we do need to go through,
I have lunch at noon, so. It's gonna be cold. Maybe
It'd be cold.
All right, so environmental compliance is next. Really, there is no big news with environmental compliance, other than we're asking to add a stormwater technician, which would bring our head count up from 5 to 6. Budget request here is $943,660.
Mayor, I do have a quick question. We're adding one more position, but the salaries have gone down 155,000.
Yeah, it's the mix in positions.
Just a mix, 155,000?
It's yes.
So not a so moved.
What was the amount again?
the amount is
943.
943 what?
660.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the environmental compliance budget at a total of $943,660. That's the correct amount. Is there any further discussion? Who?
I did.
Gene moved and
I
he
seconded.
and Darrell seconded. Okay, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Okay,
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Berner?
Yes.
And Mucci?
Yes.
Okay, sanitation fund.
So move.
so moved,
So
okay.
let's pull that up. I'm having Jamie do a quick calculation. If you recall, we presented, Republic Sanitation came to present their budget to us a couple weeks ago. We'd already completed the budget at that time, but they proposed a 4% rate increase. That we approved that. So Jamie's just writing the numbers down, so I'll give you the values and then we'll add it back into the budget after this meeting.
These adjustments that you're making, again, it's all a part of the balanced budget that we're being presented today.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So,
And again, these are not tax dollars. This is for the sanitation costs going up.
So we're going to have a different number here.
They charge our rate 4% increase. Our
Okay.
bills go up 4% and we get 18% of that back as rate reimbursement.
So we're through the general gov items?
Yeah.
uh-huh,
Okay.
yeah. So,
1339.
It's all
there was a motion to approve the sanitation budget. Is the budget being approved at a total of?
No pressure.
Yep, that's good.
And the motion, should the motion include the fact that we're approving the budget plus a 4% increase, which is yet to be applied?
Yes, you have to be factored into the actual municipal.
Into the actual, okay, so, but the number you're giving us does not include the 4% increase, does it, or does?
She's got it
I
calculated.
can give you the.
The
new
4%
number.
increase?
Yep. So
Okay,
it's
so
13,309,297.
So I'll amend my motion to that amount.
which in, it's
I think
been,
Victor already seconded
And
it.
I'll me amend my, yes.
so it's been moved and seconded to approve the sanitation fund in the amount of $13,309,297, which includes the increase with Republic Services, 4%, okay? Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
And Brunner?
Yes.
So utility billing, and I see that we have the addition of an accounting specialist one,
Yes.
right? Okay, and then moving on to the actual budget.
Right, corresponding charges for services are obviously derived internally from the utilities and sanitation. The cost of personal services goes up $132,000, basically to take care of the increases in the COLA and the new position. Bank fees, again, have gone up due to expanded use. The only real discussion point here is that we're kind of struggling on, I think, on direction on where to go with utility billing as to whether or not it'll be a Tyler or we will stay with Springbrook. And due to the uncertainty of cost, I'm going to let you know that we are including in UB $116,000 as a contingency but unallocated to any specific line.
And this is coming from the utility billing fund reserve, so it's not an increase in rates to anybody. We've been accumulating a little bit of the reserve, and as we finalize exactly how we will move forward, we wanted this in there as a capacity.
And that is, just for the council, it's total wisdom. We have, when we purchased the Tyler system, they purchased the utility billing module. They've not implemented that. It's for performance issues with Tyler, the uptime that has been quite challenging with the Tyler system. But we've had a hard time finding what we need to go to next.
We're close.
And so, yeah, they've been working diligently. Butch and Doug have worked together on this, and so we are getting to an end. This is the residual of the challenge that we faced with the decision that was made a long time ago.
Mayor,
So, yes.
so maybe Butch can answer the question. Then the Tyler platform, has it been proving to be the wrong choice? Or is it still adaptable to take care of the needs of the city?
The foundational one, and Doug, jump in here if you agree, but the foundational pieces of it, the munis portion of it is working and it's functioning well for the city. It's the peripherals, the add-ons. So,
Does that include the building department?
yeah, the Gen Gov piece is working fine right now, yeah, at this point. Mhm.
That's a revenue source.
Primarily, it relates to the utility billing and related systems that we're struggling with. So,
Yep.
but not the core functions. You want to give me a nightmare, talk about changing core functions again.
Yeah.
I just know other municipalities have had issues with Tyler.
Yeah, the biggest concern we have with utility billing is the external facing to the citizens. We want to make sure that the system is going to be reliable and up when they go to pay their bills and they don't get disconnects because they weren't able to pay their bills.
I appreciate the diligence done by these guys. Go ahead.
Just quick variance question on the contractual services, up quite a bit from the last 3 years. I'm looking at the detail. What is causing that 55,000 increase?
Oh, let me dig into my,
I see a listing of about 6 different things, but I don't know what's caused the increase. So it's been, it's temps from Tyler?
Temps, Tyler, and we're also seeing an increase in mailing costs as we increase the number of people living in the city. We have more bills to send out, and,
So it's just mainly postage?
yeah,
So postage and Tyler temps, okay?
right.
So what would we be approving on the utility billing?
So we would be asking for a budget of $1,678,867.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve utility billing at $1,678,867. Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
And Munchin?
Yes.
Okay, fleet services.
Okay, so fleet services, again, this is revenue generated internally. The total budget we would be asking for is $8,110,117. I'm not going to go through every variance, as I don't think that's necessary, but the real business of fleet is in the capital budget. That's pretty much where we would discuss most everything. The only major item here that I'd like to point out is I have budgeted in, based on what I knew, $284,454 at the bottom of page 379 for potential debt service should you move forward with any kind of a fleet street services building. The bulk of the expenditures for fleet are the $6,178,000 in the capital budget, and that's where I think we should have our discussion. So I would ask for total budget at this point of $8,110,117.
Second.
So I have a question. Where is the document that has the capital expenditures on it?
In the capital budget,
In the capital budget?
Yes.
Going over
listed by, yes. We will be going to the capital budget after engineering.
After engineering, okay. It's just not on my agenda.
Capital improvements?
No, I'm looking at yesterday's agenda. Today's agenda. I don't see it anywhere on the agenda. And where is it under? We've already gone over that one. Capital improvement budget. So are we able to do it if it's not on the agenda? Jake?
It's part of number 6. capital
Well,
improvements.
we didn't go over the actual, and like streets, we haven't gone over the actual projects. We did approvals, but we didn't actually cover the projects.
And that's what I was planning on covering right after engineering.
It's not agendized that way, though. So Jake, yes.
Mayor, if I may, you've approved essentially the budget for all of those through all of these different departments.
Yes, we did.
So you can have the discussion, but I think in terms of the agenda, you've already done the budget part, so.
Thank you, and I'm very fully aware of that. But what we typically do is unless it's okay with the council, we've approved the actual budgets, but we never approved, like typically on streets, we're going over and we're seeing what we're approving in streets, because later in the year, when we come forward with a street project, it's gonna be said, you approved this during the budget process. Yet we have not seen that document. Am I, Tom?
Mayor and council, we have a presentation with the projects if council would like to see it. So it's ready.
Okay, thank you. We just failed to get it in the agenda here. So I think that we should, or we can do it at a later time. I'd like to ask the council, what is the will of the council procedurally at this point?
So Mayor, the President can speak to it, but we don't need to take action is what I'm hearing though on those, because action's already been taken from a budgetary standpoint.
Yes.
I know I personally have looked through all those. I had 4 pages of questions, but I didn't have any on those, or I wouldn't have approved the monetary
budget.
part. The VRT, of course, is.
Again, we approved a little over $11 million worth of expenditures, all within a balanced budget, so that's.
Are you
that's what
okay
we
with
can
it?
have. But again, it'll go before the public can pick it apart too. So I wouldn't worry about the presentation to us today, because we've seen it in our book.
Right.
But I think have it prepared in the event that we want to see it during the public hearing.
Okay.
Could Tom email us that presentation though, so we could?
Yeah,
Look at
I
those
can do that
details.
right now. Yep.
I think that was that.
Okay.
Sufficient? Thank
Yep,
you.
I'll
As
send it
long
right
as
now.
you're okay with it.
How long is the presentation?
I think I have 20 slides.
You gotta email.
But
If you, is the presentation such that if they just look at it, it's going to be self-explanatory?
I think so, yeah. Yes, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Tom.
You might hurt yourself turning around and look at it.
Is the police still here? Okay.
Okay.
So I'm just going to make a quick comment for next year. We've talked about the first thing that we need to see that we've got those variances printed so we can read them. And then I'd like to ensure that we have the presentation with the budget approval so that at least, because what we've done is a little unusual today, pulling that at the end when we didn't see it during the process. And I think that it's wise to actually stop during the process, review what we're actually approving during the presentation time. So we'll make sure we do that next year. Okay, with that, we're on to,
We have a motion.
I guess, excuse me, fleet service, $8,110,000, $8,110,117. And we had a motion, right? Okay, any further discussion? Roll call.
Mucci,
Yes.
Levi,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
and Brunner.
Okay, engineering.
Engineering, this is the first year that engineering appears as an internal service fund rather than just an allocated service. We are asking that you approve a budget of $3,157,167, as that is what it cost the city to furnish engineering services to all of its divisions and departments. As far as increases, this is really an odd year, but I'll go through the fact that how many positions, we are adding what, 4 positions, I believe. Yeah, we're adding 4 positions to engineering. Engineering inspector, we're abolishing a civil engineer plans examiner. We're adding 2 staff engineer ones. We're adding a GIS analyst, a line locator, and then a couple of allocated positions, senior transportation planner at .49, public involvement coordinator at .5.
What'd you say, Daniel?
So they're existing positions, so.
Which ones, Daniel?
Mayor, council, the senior transportation planner, that would be Claire Bowman. So he's being moved out of our division. The public involvement coordinator at .5 is Tiffany McCree. The 2 staff engineer ones, will be promotions, not new. We have 2 of our EITs that will be getting their engineering licenses. So those are promotions, not new. The 4 new positions are the engineering inspector, a second line locator, another EIT, and what's the last one? And the GIS analyst for streets.
So the promotions, the 2 staff engineer ones, which are promotions, are not new positions, so we could abolish 2 of the engineers in training.
Those have already been done. The EIT positions you have already removed.
So, Daniel, Mayor, how many- it's not listed here as far as 2021, number of your staff.
We are requesting 4 additional staff is the only delta between last year and this year.
And no part of a grant writer in yours.
No, that did not end up in mine.
Wow.
Okay, so we have a full grant writer now somewhere.
Grant assistance is under contractual services.
As long as it's a full person.
Darrell's gonna hire Gene part-time. Yeah, .09.
So without any
Still not.
budget from last year, it's hard to do a comparison without last year's budget in there.
Well, you can take pages 184 onward and pick up last year's budget. That 4 engineers in training. And I did not have any staff engineer ones. So if I'm adding 2 staff engineer ones, then I must reduce engineers in training.
Mayor, we had allocated those to different divisions. This is the change where we bring all of them back in to the engineering department, rather than allocate one out to the deputy director water group and the transportation group. That's why there is that's why there's no change in that amount for this, in the EITs for this year.
So how about if we just identify, when we've said there's 4 new staff positions, so what is the total number of staff that we have? Is it 29.59?
The 29.59 is the correct
It's a
total
correct number.
staff for FY '22.
Okay, and then so I'm good with that. As long as we've got that number on there, it's 29.59.
So 21 was 25.59?
Correct.
It was 25.58 versus 59, but I think we're okay.
Okay.
Yep, so that equals 4 new staff positions, so we're good. Okay, so personnel summary is done. Let's move on to the budget. And in looking at the budget, there is a little bit of an increase from the adopted budget last year. So I guess, council, do you have any questions on the engineering budget?
could we get that information added before the public hearing? So we have that as a reference. I'll make the motion to approve engineering at $3,157,167. But if we could get that added information, so for comparison purposes.
Certainly.
So it's been moved and seconded to approve the Public Works Engineering budget at $3,157,167. Is there any further discussion? Is that the correct dollar amount? Okay, roll call.
Rodriguez? Yes. Brunner?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
And Haverfield?
Yes.
Okay. So while we're together, I have a quick question for the council regarding our public hearing on August 16th. How would you like to proceed in the public hearing with the capital improvement items? Do you want, as long as we're together, this is a good time to ask council. So do we want, for the public hearing and the staff presentation, we're going to be presenting a whole budget for approval. Do we want the call out for Public Works on transportation, for streets projects, do we want capital? Yeah, how much detail do we want for the public hearing?
Are you talking about verbalizing or just having it available for any citizens?
Presentation. So and what we will do, we're going to do a couple of videos with Doug, and because our budget this year, the very high-level budget is complicated because of the GPS, the fire district going out. It's just a complicated budget. So we will be doing some videos. We will repost the budget, and it's already posted online, but we'll repost it once it's updated. And we'll field questions. Amy's got a communication plan to get it out to the public. But how would we, how much detail in our
Well,
public?
typically what I've done in the past, and this is up to your will, is I've taken my budget summary, which is about 4 pages, and use that as the presentation for the public hearing, which has capital in total, but not by project. So if you want more detail in any of these aspects, we can certainly work it in the presentation. Now, we could also, if you wanted to have more detail available next Monday night, I have no idea what the agenda is. I haven't looked at it Monday night. For the 19th. If you wanted more data there on the capital, I'm sure that could be available too. Ed will be here at the meeting, but that's up to the will of the mayor and the council.
And it is all in the capital budget at the back of the book.
Mayor,
So I would,
I'm just so the public is aware where they can find the capital details. Those who are interested in doing that can do that as long as we make them aware.
And this book has been published. It's on the city website under the finance department, so it's out there.
Whatever, marketing can do as far as to make sure that's,
Yep.
closer to the public hearing.
and we're not done yet,
He needs
but,
to leave, though.
okay.
I told him it'd be fine, we still have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, Jacob. So the last item on the agenda is going back to the very first item. Rick, could you do me a favor and text Jamie? Yes.
I just had 2 questions.
Okay, please.
First off, so do we have a total in the changes that were made of what the proposed budget is for the year?
We need to go.
We'll get that.
So I tell you what, while we are having this other discussion, Ed had suggested that we go back and review our totals before we end. So what we're going to do is, we're going to move into a PL discussion. While we're in PL discussion, I'd like for you guys to confer, and then we're going to very quickly go over what, Ed, you had asked about, to confirm each approval to make sure it's correct and give us the total, the new total, based on these budget hearings.
Yes, and we have one more action to take. We've got to do the grants all other to
Okay.
get that amount on record.
Okay, so I thought we talked about that a little earlier, the grants all other. But yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you. So the other thing I'm not clear on is, Ed, when you were presenting the wastewater, you said there were 2 parts. There was one, the plant, and then the second part never got touched on.
Was environmental compliance,
Okay.
which we did right after.
Okay, there was a sub under there. Thank you.
So I'm sorry, Councilwoman Levi, was that it? I didn't mean to cut you short. I
Thank you,
certainly apologize. Okay, Ed, let's go back to, it was grants other? Is that correct? Okay, what page are we on then?
301.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so, let me get to 301. So there are a number of really small grants that, on the expenditure side, and we have the revenues that we have to accept. So I would ask that council move in $3,842,955, which consists of grant revenue that supports, let me get to my revenue sources, streets projects, airports, donations for customer service and customer assistance, primarily the UB Shares program, and $8,000 of expenditure for the grants, for the golf scholarships. And those are really the elements that I'm asking you to move in. It's
Excuse me, Mayor. What scholarships did you say?
the golf scholarships. Again, the large amounts that you see, the 2 million and the 1.7, support capital construction.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? I would say next year on here, under the detail, let's put some names with those grant revenue numbers.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
What page is that on?
That's on 302. Are there any further questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
So that concludes, and then we're going to come back, is that correct, Ed, in just a few
Okay.
minutes at the conclusion of our discussion?
Okay. I do have one suggestion for next year's budget, that we just give you an amount, and Doug and Jamie and I will figure it out.
Done.
That's
our
total
job.
trust, but without verification.
I want to thank you, Ed, for all your work.
Reagan way.
Yes. Thank you. But don't go too far. You guys are going to come back and you're going to run through numbers with us.
Ed, your brain cells are still working well at 7.
Okay. So the next item and the final agenda item, with the exception of reconfirming our numbers, we're going back to one of the first items on the agenda. We did not move forward with a resolution for a change in our handbook. However, we are looking at making some changes to our PL system. And Doug Racine and Jamie Chapman have worked diligently on some plans. And so, Doug, does this require a vote? Did we already, have we approved this in any other place? Or is this
We've approved this in the budget. We have not determined the exact execution. The options we have before us in whether we go with exactly what we described or a component or a different payout or a different structure won't impact the budget. It won't increase the budget. It may decrease the budget if we change the payout parameters, but it doesn't need additional budgetary approval.
Okay, thank you. Jamie, I'm going to have you just come sit down, use this extra microphone here. Is there an extra microphone there?
Yep.
Okay. So the two of you, I'll let you tag team, and you two work together and can go back and forth and just present to us. So thank you.
Let me start off, and then I'll let Jamie go through, and she's better at explaining this. But I wanted to really point out, and maybe Jamie will come back to this, that this isn't just a PL issue. This is a change in the benefits package. And overall, it's a strengthening and improvement in the benefits package. I know that we've had some comments where people have bypassed the tremendous strengthening of the benefits, and they look at what they perceive as maybe a less than positive change in the PL payout. And I want to call out that on the benefits, we're out-of-pockets are going down dramatically. The ER fee is going from $200 to $100. Your copay is going down to $20. Your RX portion is going down. Everything is improving, and it has a real tangible benefit. So this is a benefits package change. PL is a part of that. And overall, it is a tremendous strengthening. Adding a short-term disability program, increasing the total number of hours. I want to make sure that's clear with everybody in the city, because that we're able to do this because we've been very fiscally conservative. But the challenge is, how do we maintain that fiscally conservative nature going out forward if we have a $6.5 million liability hanging over our heads that virtually every other, even Meridian's changed this and has cut this out. I was at St. Luke's about 10 years ago, I think 9 years ago, they did the same thing. They cut it down, and there was a payout. I don't know if you were there when they did that. This was like 8 or 9 years ago. They cut down the PL, they made a payout. This is just, the fiscal impact becomes overwhelming to the city and to any organization. So this is a matter of responsibility, but it's a total improvement overall with the benefits package. So don't look at it as just one item, but as a comprehensive change that improves the employee's total benefits package.
In support of what Doug just mentioned, we did take a total compensation look, and when we do our competitive analysis across the valley, not only Boise, Meridian, but we did Ada County, we compared to Canyon County and Caldwell, in addition to the greater geographical region in like cities around Idaho, a couple in Washington, and the total compensation is really what we're looking at, what the employee's net take-home is in comparison to other cities and their net take-home, if everything is compared. And what, as Doug mentioned, what we're doing is redesigning a few of the plans so that it is sharing some of the health benefits, as he mentioned, some of the health trust, as trustees of the health medical trust, is sharing back some of that because it's growing too much, right? That wasn't the intent of the health trust and the amounts that we have in there. But we think with what we're planning on putting in across all benefits, that it will help us maintain the continuity of it, sustaining it into the future. We may have to adjust, not the vacation, but we may have to address some of the benefits on the health next year. And we'll wait and see, just with COVID happening and there being a delay and our trust growing 1 year. That's not a great year to calibrate it off of, but we took that into consideration with our analysis with Blue Cross, Clark at Blue Cross, when we made that analysis. So with that and the health, the health improvements that he mentioned, because the employees are going to see something that is going to wow them, and we will be sharing it with them on the health trust, that on the health plans, that it is because of their wellness decisions. And it is more of a wellness approach, and there will be some wellness incentives tied to it a year from now. But we want to share back with them because we are self-insured, and their costs are going, they have been realizing less costs on the medical side. So with that, what you have in front of you is policy 6.8 in the current handbook. We've replaced that policy. We're recommending replacing it. We would like a voice of the people period, where we actually get some feedback on some elements of it, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. But is overall what you see, 40. I'm gonna go to the 40-hour line down at the bottom of that first page. I would like to use that for an example. A 40-hour employee would accrue 6 hours per pay period. That is on par with our toughest competitors that we're losing employees to. And it is, and they still have the secondary plan that I'm going to introduce here in just a minute. It is on par with with the competitors about the maximum liability. So it is the same the maximum accrual. What you see there is, so for somebody who's been here 1 to 4 years, their maximum accrual would be 288 hours. We would do a one-time buyout of 208. And the reason for that is, again, we're down to 208. Sorry, down to 208. And the reason for that is we were trying to anticipate, we spent a lot of hours meeting on this, how we could make it the least impact to employees. And this actually is taking it to another 80 hours below the maximum accrual so that they have time. From an employee perspective, we wanted to remove all the obstacles. The concerns is to give them time to accrue more before they are still, if it was at 288, we bought them down to 288, they would be maxed out, and then they would have to immediately take time off. So we were trying to design the plan in a way that gave them time to be able to schedule vacation and not automatically be right at the top of their max accrual again. So each of those amounts, for example, that 1 to 4 year employee, the max is 288. Their one-time buy down, if they have hours in excess of that, would be in October, and it would be to take them down to 208. On a 15-plus year employee, it would be, the max is 408, and the buy down would be to 328, again, just 80 below that. We would like to get employee input on and do a vote from a survey with employees to ask whether they would like half of the buy down to be tied to a 401k 457 deposit or a tax sheltered HRA VEBA, so that again, that we can look out for the interests of the people that we take care of in the city. And we'd like to get their input. Because of HRA VEBA rules for a health reimbursement account, we are not allowed to do, like, you couldn't do it one way and I do it another way. We have to, as a city, make a decision for everybody. So we would like a period. That was why we paused and said, let's not put it in policy yet for today, because we would like to get the voice of the people and go with the majority of where that is, the interest is, where that interest lies. And preferentially, I would like to go to the employees that it impacts the most, which are going to be the lower third population. So that's the plan. So with that, do you have any questions about the paid vacation leave changes?
So let's go to the sick person, if we could.
Pardon me?
Let's go to the next section
Okay.
of this. If we
And then you
could.
can see it all
Yes.
together? Okay.
Well, let's just talk about what the sick leave, the new accrual, and the fact that we're allowing the hours for our sick ESL.
Yes. So the extended leave program would function similarly to a short-term disability program. We had done a poll last year with our employees during open enrollment. If you haven't noticed, I like polling our employees before I make decisions as well. And we did have about 37% of the employees that were interested in a short-term disability program, and that was even if they had to pay for it themselves. Because employees tend to want to save their higher vacation balances in the event of a catastrophic situation that happens that's unforeseen. So what we were trying to do is to offset the change with the lower vacation maximums by having something that would provide a plan that's designed to protect employee base income in the if they were unable to work for 3 or more days due to a serious health condition. So that accrual is, again, consistent with, I did design it after a program that I saw in Meridian as well. And it was for 40 hours, a 40-hour employee would accrue 4 hours per paycheck, up to a max amount of $520. That would not have any payout options upon separation at this time. It's not designed that way. It is intended to be something that would be used for, something different than minor, being out for an appointment or, a day out for, if you have a cold or something. It could even cover, things with the recent COVID, if they were out for COVID, or to care for a family member for COVID. That's the same as FMLA would cover. It really runs concurrently with FMLA and FMLA plans.
Mayor, quick question, if I may.
Yeah.
I don't want to challenge the ethics, but it's just a reality of when you have a lot of employees, there are a few that may take advantage. So I'm not advocating for the payout after leaving.
Right.
But it somewhat incentivizes maybe a minority of employees to take sick leave when they're not sick.
And because it does follow the same guidelines as FMLA, there are certification requirements, just like a short-term disability plan would have.
Note from a doctor.
Note from
You'd
a
have to-
doctor, even for a cold or a flu, or what?
Pardon me? What?
If for a longer term, out more than 3 days.
Yes.
Use it as extended sick leave, you would have to have it confirmed.
Yep, with the doctor.
Medical.
And I'm talking about more like, well, hey, let's make this a long weekend.
Well, prior to that, it comes out of your PL up before 3 days.
Yeah,
Your
just like it
vacation.
does today. This just gives that, where they wanted to save the higher amounts for PL in case of something catastrophic, it gives them something for catastrophic, something for serious.
Yeah, I understand, okay, maybe I'm not good, I'm just saying, rather than taking a PL day, a leave day, taking a sick day.
Yes, and I apologize, it's more than 3 days. It's,
I think
so
what-
basically 4 or more.
Supervision is important. And you know what? Our core values are integrity, right? Stewardship and teamwork. And
You've actually, Councilman, addressed one of the issues that we're aware of overall. When you have a large city like us and, well, I guess we are large, aren't we? And you have a very generous PL function, there are those who might choose to take time and try not to record it and build up their balances, right? I think that's the minority of the people that would do that. We've got very honest, hardworking population here, but we want to encourage, part of this change is to encourage the city staff to use PL. And now, I recognize that provides a challenge for some who are, like myself. I mean, I have a hard time using PL because I'm working all the time. So using PL is just one of those, kind of like a rarity. But we want people to encourage, you need time off. We've got to encourage this. And the goal is to devise a process that allows people to meet their needs, take time off, provide for short-term disability scenarios, while at the same time minimizing the potential for the rare cases of abuse.
Jamie, Doug, so Councilman Bruner, I just went through this at work, and I don't know if it would be similar, but I just had an employee go out on ESL, and it requires not only a physician note, but then has to be approved by your supervisor, and then you have to have a return to work condition that's also in writing with, again, followed by a physician's note, and you had to have been seen by the physician. And so to fudge on that, if it's going to be similar, is a lot of work. It would cost you money, and it would be a lot of work. Yeah, so there,
Good point.
multiple layers that go into that ESL. The only way ours kicks in right away is if you've been hospitalized or had to be under anesthesia. Other than that, there's a 3-day wait period with a 3-day with all of those safeguards in place. And even if it's immediate because you got in a crash on the way to work and you're hospitalized, you still have to have all those layers.
Another ballgame, another discussion, maybe, but I think that workman's comp, and are we working on that also as far as bringing employees back if there's a workman's comp issue?
Yes, yes. We offer them light duty and they decline light duty, they're not eligible for lost wages under workers' comp, and we are coordinating those positions across the city. So, and then, I just lost my train of thought. I was gonna say there was one wrap-up comment I wanted to make, but
I probably interrupted you, so.
no, that's okay.
The question in my mind today is that we were going to have an action, which was a resolution.
Right.
Change in the handbook. We decided not to do that because we want to actually see how the employees want to apply this. I do want to make one comment for those that would be concerned, and this would be on the employee base. For those that are maxed out on their time, actually, they're going to get a payout. If they're maxed out, they're going to get a payout. So anyone that already is accrued above this gets a cash payout. So no one, everybody's grandfathered. I mean, as far as there's no one that's going to lose anything. Not only are they going to get a payout, but they're going to get an extra 80 hours that they didn't already have, because we're going to take them down to that extra 80 hours to where they are no longer maxed out on their PL.
So, right along that line, Mayor, if somebody has 600-700 hours, whether they get the payout today or when they retire, it's the same essential payout. We're giving it to them early. The only people this really affects in any negative capacity is people like me who are brand new, who haven't built up an accrual, and I'm limited on what I could grow. So this applies directly to me more so than somebody that's been here 10, 15 years.
Mayor Kling. I know change is hard for people, but I just want to give people who might be concerned about losing some of this benefit some comparison's sake. I work at St. Luke's, I think most of you know that. I've been there 19 years and I'm at our max accrual, which is 240 hours per year. But I want to qualify that with this too. We don't get vacation, or we don't get holidays. Doug, you remember this?
No, it comes
We're
all
open
into
365, 24/7. So any recognized holiday, we have to take our PTO. So it immediately takes your maximum bank under 200. And then the out-of-pocket max that you all are going to be receiving now is lower than what we do in working in a healthcare system.
And we had the same system when I was there under the PL. That was better than I had at Albertsons.
Yeah. And and once you hit 240 at St. Luke's, you lose it.
Yeah.
So it's a use it or lose it. And we've had people this year who've not been able to take any, and they made some concessions because of the demand of COVID. But so even moving this down and we're not offered a payout, it's use it or lose it.
Yep.
I think this is 408 plus 520 ESL. I think from where I sit and the benefits that I get, which I think still are really great. This is a really rich benefit package, and I think reducing the out-of-pocket on families is a significant benefit. I hate to see people get into a catastrophic
That could
case.
those high out products could be life altering, where you
Bankrupt.
literally are bankrupt. And they deal with that at St. Luke's all the time. Those types of high out of pockets, and the catastrophic health care coverage is essentially what it becomes.
So Mayor, I really appreciate the thought that's gone into this, and I think around the holidays too, a nice payout is really wonderful, and I appreciate the thought, and again, I think comparing to other industry, and then likewise, I appreciate all the work you've done to continue to make sure that our employees have the highest value benefits. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate Doug and Jamie's work on this. You've done an excellent job. It's also, this represents stewardship, because long-term, it's a savings to the city. And that's the goal, is that we care for our employees and that so this is an example of stewardship, and you guys have done a great job.
Doug and I work in good balance that way. He says finance, I say people. So, and then he says finance again, and I say people again. So, but I did remember what it was I was going to mention, Councilman Brunner, is that on your question you asked a little bit ago, is we are putting some checks and balances in place, taking a look at new employees that have been here that have the max amount of accrual, and they've only been here 4 years, is to say why is that happening, and are the leaders making sure that their timesheets are accurate. And because of that, I also put the accountability and enforcement responsibility documented into this so that supervisors understand their responsibility, that they are as accountable as the employee is for accurate timekeeping.
Doug, would you let Ed and Jamie know we need them back like right now, because these guys are going to leave. And so back to this. This will come back to the council for approval as a handbook, in the handbook with the changes to the handbook. And Jamie, in the meantime, will work with our employees.
Yeah, it'd probably be August, end of August, September, and then we'll make it effective October 1st, but we're going to go ahead and socialize it with employees as a draft. Okay, thank
So
you.
the only thing that we'd like to do is reconfirm our numbers real quick. And so Jamie, thank you so
Okay,
much.
you're welcome.
Mayor Kling, as Jamie socializes this with employees, Jamie, I wonder too, I know you've compared against municipalities, but I wonder if it would also help to put some other industry standards in there so that they're seeing the difference between municipality benefits versus other industries where it's much lower.
Great idea. Thank you. And thank you, shout out to Tiffany McCree and Tom Point's group because she's been helpful in helping me interpret this from an employee perspective and is going to help me put some marketing pieces together. So thank you.
Jamie, go ahead and come forward. Jamie, the other Jamie, I'm sorry, Ellsbury. Thank you. Okay, so I know we're trying to get out the door, so how do you want to proceed? Do you want to tell us by page number? Are you asking that we reconfirm the numbers? What would you like, or what do you need?
Yes. Yes, what we did,
Just the overall.
So if you could give us the overall number that we've approved.
And if you can email the.
we weren't quite at the overall number. We did confirm that most every action that we took yesterday is correct. I do want to call your attention to the police department, where we in fact made a change today by increasing that budget by $177,000. We did have some other changes, ups and downs. As you know, we added money to the human resources budget. Let me get my little list here. We reduced the Valley Ride to $378. I had mentioned the National League of Cities, but I didn't know if we were going to take some of that savings and spend it on the National League. I'm seeing a no, okay? And the only other increase that we had was $3,274, and that was in legal fees to reflect cost of living. And then we had the $2,000 for the teen council, which I'll transfer from a general gov line where I know that I've got sufficient money. So Jamie and I will put together a draft of what we think the ordinance will look like and send you folks the numbers.
We were approximately at 241 million. That's where we were approximately. So is it going to be more than that or a little less?
It'll be a little more.
Mayor,
So,
does that meet
I
your
want to
needs?
make su- Well, I want to make sure legally we've done what we need to do here, because we cannot go up on a budget, we can go down on a budget. But the budget workshop does give us what we're going out to public hearing on. So I feel like we need to know what the number is, because otherwise, I don't know if we officially have approved a budget. We need to know what the number is, because this is it's a hearing for that.
Could,
That's what will go.
Mayor, could Ed total and accumulate and bring the number Monday night to council for the final formal approval, the total aggregate?
Yes, we could do that, because
Okay.
we're working on the agenda tomorrow, so we will do that. We'll do that at the Monday night council meeting. Great idea.
All right.
Thank you.
Great idea. Thank you. So, good job, guys. Great work. Thank you.
I'll make the motion to
To
adjourn.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?